I feel like it's going to come up at some point in this conversation. All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. We are proudly presented by SPI Logistics, the best freight agent or freight agency in North America for more than 40 years running. I'm your host, Blythe Milligan, and we are back with our second edition of the 2026 Freight Friends series, because we haven't recorded together since February at Manifest. And so welcome back in, Sharkey of Orderful.
Oh my God. It's like a whole year. Manifest is trying to make me sign up for like 2028 events right now. So it's like,
twist my arm.
Yeah, 6 months in the logistics world is like, where have we been? It's great. Hey, is this a Christmas episode?
I mean, by the next time we record, it might be. I mean, who knows? It's one of those things. I think we both like, especially speaking for myself, the first 6 months of this year were just insane on a personal and professional level. So kind of getting back into the groove of recording regular episodes like this. I'm very much looking forward to it. Just got back from a trip overseas, abroad. I said, I don't even know if I can really like talk yet. So this is going to be my first foray into having a coherent episode again. So I appreciate you coming back. And we got a lot of good stuff to get into today.
Yeah, like how you went to Tokyo Disney without me. Let's just start there,
More on that later. But yes, I had a brief overview. I had my cousin was getting married in Sri Lanka. My husband and I, we wanted to take a honeymoon. We got married almost 2.5 years ago, but we didn't take a honeymoon yet. We tried to take it at our 1-year anniversary, but weren't able to make, trying to hack the system with our credit card miles. Wasn't able to make it happen for our 1-year anniversary. And so when my cousin was getting married in Sri Lanka, we said, well, why don't we break up that long ass flight and hit Japan for 1 week, and then we'll go over to Sri Lanka for another week to take part in the wedding and explore a little bit of the country. And it was an incredible trip. I am now broke, so please, nobody asked me to go anywhere or do anything.
We're back.
I am dirt broke. I need to make some money, so that's why we're recording today.
And this episode is
It's brought to you by SPI Logistics, who keeps the lights on for this entire operation. Get in touch with me if you want to sponsor the show, because we need the cash.
They're the agent model, right?
Yes.
And we love the agent model. I think that's the new frontier, baby. So I will back this too, SPI. Way to go. I
think we had this discussion a little while ago, a couple of years ago, about how the freight agency model, I think, is one of the best in all of logistics, because you can work with it's very much, you own your own business. You can work with a handful of customers, and you get competitive splits, and you can bring your own technology, or you can, build off of SBI's technology stack. And they have everyone. They have every kind of, technology that you could imagine, or you could bring your own and take advantage of it. But one benefit that not a lot of agencies have is that SPI does have is that they don't have an in-house brokerage. So typically at, a lot of 3PLs or brokerages, they'll have, a dozen agents or so, but they have them in addition to the in-house brokers. And so when that happens, like, other brokers in-house can see your customers, can maybe take your customers. I'm not saying that's all agencies, but with SPI in particular, they have been around for 40 years. They pioneered the freight agent movement, and they got started in the early 90s. We have a whole bunch of interviews, a whole bunch of, case studies over on the Everything is Logistics website if you want to check out conversations from their agents. But yeah, that you don't have to compete with in-house brokerages or in-house brokers like you do at other brokerages if you were to take on an agent role with them. So that's just something to keep in mind if any freight agents are out there and they're shopping a new opportunity. If you have an existing book of business, definitely hit up the SPI page over on Everything is Logistics, and you can hear from those agents and the executive team themselves. So thank you for helping me keep the lights on and pay my bills. So
and awesome just people. That leadership team I've met a number of times, and they're just really good people too. And It's a relationship industry, that matters.
Hey, heck yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. I mean, speaking a little bit, about, resources and, content and, the last big thing before I took this trip is conducted a series of interviews for the sister site to Everything is Logistics called Cargo Rex. And so basically a directory building the Google search of logistics over on that site, and wanted to start taking an editorial approach to content and making resources and guides for folks who are visiting the site, because for a lot of folks, they don't know what to look for. They don't know what to search for. And so our content is really starting to get off the ground over there on focusing on the problems that are existing in the industry and who's trying to solve some of those problems. And that's where we came up with the AI use cases guide. And it's essentially, I think you probably hear this a lot too, where you hear the phrase AI and most folks don't even know what they're referring to when they talk about AI. Are you talking about a large language model? Are you talking about a boring process? Are you talking about, smart filtering? Like, even, spell check, for God's sakes, is, could be considered AI. And so,
yeah,
with that phrase, it comes with a lot of connotation. It comes with, some fear around that word, but then it also comes with a lot of opportunity around that word. And so from my lens of what I wanted to find out is who is actually skipping the marketing fluff of agents and bots that make phone calls and things like that. Like, I want to know what is actually moving the needle. And come to find out, after having these 8 discussions, we talked to Bot Auto, we talked to Good Ship, we talked to Envoy AI, Hey Bubba, Q'd, EPG Americas, Soteria, and Sifted. And a lot of what they're solving are boring problems. And I think that that's what gets lost in a lot of this discussion is it's the boring stuff that is at most benefit to AI kind of coming in, where you're rethinking your processes and replacing it with a robot where it makes the most sense, or you're replacing it with a process that can be automated where it makes the most sense. Now, I talked specifically to vendors. I did not talk to, because it was very hard to get people to submit their stories of how they're using AI if they're not a business owner. But I believe you had a post around the same time that the guide released, in that you wanted to talk to people who are actually using these tools to find out what is the fluff and what's not. So if you want to hear the vendor side of the conversation, who they have plenty of customers who they've talked to and they have customers for a reason. But then on the flip side, what about the users that you have spoken to, or even during your own sort of buying processes and with Orderful, what have you sort of seen at the ground level of where the conversation is shifting to when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I think, well, one thing I hit on that post because it was around the time we're seeing Uber and a lot of large enterprise technology businesses as well kind of pulling back on their AI strategy. And I think there's a number of reasons for that, and kind of the deployment of exactly how those strategies into that a little bit here in a second. But I think what's interesting to me is, just as generally, in the role that I'm in, my marketing era now, my goal, right, is to attract buyers and to find buyers at their buying moment, right? And I think what's fascinating is that I would be surprised if other people in the freight tech space are experiencing this, but as the Claudes of the world became available over the last 6 or so months, right? We had ChatGPT, but I think Claude in particular really started pushing people into like, oh, my regular employees can start using this. As that started to happen, I think we saw across the board a lot of executives getting pushed from, of course, their leaders. We all have a boss. A lot of times you might think that they don't, but a shareholder is still a boss. But getting pushed to not invest money into new technologies, but to try to lower costs and avoid those investments by like bringing it in-house through like an agentic type of way, right? And it makes sense. If I was a business leader right now and someone came to me and said, hey, listen, our quoting tool is trash. I'd like to buy a new quoting tool. My first question would be to you is, have you attempted to build that same quoting tool in Claude? I would probably hit back with that immediately. And I think that people across the board are seeing that right now from a buying standpoint. And so they're really trying to like figure out, okay, where do we have the expertise to build something and where do we not, right? What I really love about the companies that you specifically just listed off, I think all of them are focused on tackling like you said, one of those really boring problems.
Whoops.
Hey, whoa, Cargo Rex, what's that?
I'm trying to do a screen share really quick, but yeah, here we go. This is the one I wanted.
What's that? Everyone, go to cargorex. Is it IO?
Oh, no, wait, yeah, cargorex.io.
Yeah,
and there we go. There's the guide. If you're watching live on YouTube, we got the guide up on the screen.
Goodness, everyone should go look at that site right now.
It is. I mean, it is. We got some work to do. You know, website is never truly done. But yeah, the 8 companies you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, they're doing some pretty great stuff. I think probably if I had to choose favorites from it, we do have to choose friend of the show, Nick Boston. Yeah. Michelle McBride was another conversation I loved. Yes. Sateria was Sarit. She was awesome. And then Tom, of course, I've been wanting to talk to Tom over at Q'd for a long time. And, you know, with these interviews, I really wanted to structure them around, you know, if I'm a buyer, this is how I would maybe have the conversation, and then just give the information out and try to keep, I guess, my opinion away from it as much as possible and save the opinion for a show like this. Yeah. And so for a lot of these interviews, it's very much like cut and dried. Like, here's the questions I would ask as a potential buyer. But I mean, admittedly, I'm sure there's some questions in there that are missed. And, you know, and that's where I would really look to, you know, someone like yourself who's on the other side of those conversations as well of, you know, how are people approaching you about, you know, these kinds of conversations?
Yeah, well, all of these, if you look across the board, one, they are boring problems. They're workflows, to your point, that happen daily, that happen often. Perfect place to attack AI, right? And all these companies are using AI within their products. That would be something I would be concerned with. If a company isn't talking about AI at this point, it's like, why aren't you? Which is odd. I think sometimes that scares people in other industries, but I will stand on the fact that shouldn't scare a buyer. That should actually impress a buyer at this point. 2, they're all kind of nuanced issues, and a nuanced issue needs a lot of data behind it and a lot of testing behind it to make sure it works well. And as someone who may be an executive looking to be the final decision maker on something like this, you have to ask yourself, is that nuance something I'm willing to discover and find and invest in myself if that is something you're going to build in-house? Oftentimes it's not. It's going to take you a while. There's going to be a huge technical debt to it. At that point, like, what's interesting is like when I hear people are doing that and they're like not also building that product to like sell at some point, it's like gross. Like, why are you doing that? It doesn't make any business sense. Like, buy or build with the thought process in your head that you will exit that build at some point. So that's one thing I'd say too. And also, like, when I talk about the data aspect, like, you know, I think the one thing I've learned really also through Orderful, but also just like using AI tools myself is like how do I say this? Learning how data is stored and looked back to or remembered, right? Like, here's a perfect example. I have a droid. It's my little droid because I build things now, Blythe. I've got a little droid that I have that goes back in time, pulls event leads, sees how often they were followed up on, gives me a report of what's changed in the past. And if, like, for instance, if someone hasn't been followed up with a certain amount of time, it sets a task for that individual inside Salesforce to make sure that they follow up with them that week. It's how I can keep up with, like, where event leads are sitting, how I'm, managing campaigns to maybe touch them again, etc. But when I was building that droid, what I started to realize in building it is that if I wasn't storing what the outcome was of, like, the first time I ran it, I was never going to be successful in pulling the change because I wasn't clocking the first pull somewhere, right? So if, for instance, and listen, people, I'm a tech nerd. I'm not a techie. So I know there's, like, really smart people listening right now, and it's like, that's not how you explain that. You know what? Get in my DMs and tell me how to explain it because I'd love to learn. But this is, like, me dumbing it down. So, like, let's say I wanted to keep track of rain levels in Lansing, Michigan. I'd have to be storing what the rain level was yesterday somewhere, right? I can't be like, hey, compare it to last week because it never actually, like, clocked last week. So, like, when I'm pulling, like, this droid and this event data, I'm also reverting it back and storing it in something like Obsidian so that I can pull back and remember, what it pulled 2 weeks ago. So it can actually keep track of the change over time. And so, like, that's something very small, but it showcases too, like, and I think what a lot of people are learning right now about how difficult it is to build these tools and have them be accurate. And so, like, that's something I'd say to you too. Like, if you're looking at these new tools, if you're seeing AI everywhere, start investing in, like, really asking questions of, like, what their roadmap looks like, how they're managing this, where the human involvement is interacting. Because most oftentimes, and even with Orderful, right, we have a lot of AI, agentic AI behind the scenes that's doing certain things. But we also have points where humans are monitoring that as well. So I think, just generally speaking, like, one, if you're looking to start getting into AI tools, play around with Claude and play around with that stuff yourself. You're gonna, like, you'll learn, like, practices that actually will revert back to poor, I think, technology experiences you had in the past. Because you'll start to realize, oh, that's why that's not working because I don't even use that field, right? Like, in my TMS. Or, oh, that's why this poor behavior of operation that I've been doing, or this like revert around isn't working because I'm not doing that correctly. And so, yeah, I guess I kind of went off topic of your original question, but I think right now it's about exploring. I think you've told me this often, like, no one really knows. AI is, like, too early and it's too new to, like, be an expert at it at this point, right? I think we're seeing that across the board on how AI is being deployed. So just, like, get your hands in it, get dirty, play around with tools, learn what's working, learn what's not. Start with the workflows that you know best, like those 8 stories you just touched on, right? We all know how to use retail links, and we all know it sucks to go in there every single day. Thank God Q'd figure out a way to take care of it for us, right? But you also, at the same time, probably invested in Q'd, understood fully how awful that problem is, and realized throughout the last so many months of building your own tools or playing around with it that you're not going to be able to duplicate that well enough to be worth your time. So yeah, like, get your hands dirty in AI first, and then starts, talking with companies and talking with the founders and how they're using AI inside their 4 walls. And I think you'll be surprised on how good these products could work for you and how well they are working for their customers now. Every single one of those you just listed off are brands I would, like, totally stand behind and have heard wonderful things from their customers too.
And I think, speaking of cute and Tom over there, he talked about during our conversation about how when he talks with a company, he wants to talk to the biggest skeptic in the company and he wants to sit with them specifically to understand what their processes are and where they think that it won't fit in and where that has a potential to maybe fit in. And I think it's, it's sort of very much like a lot of things in life where it's a pendulum. And I think for, the last year, there's been a lot of people who have been, including myself included, who have dove headfirst into this new information layer, this new way of thinking and working and figuring out where, and just figuring it out, trying to figure out where it's going to make the most impact and where it's not. And there's some areas where I'm just like, God, I wish I could just, me myself could just be cloned. And I have spent probably the last year and a half trying to clone myself, but it doesn't turn up in the numbers. And then it's like, well, maybe that's not the right application to clone myself, because if you think about from the AI lens, AI is based on data. Data inherently is past tense. And so where our strength comes from as a human is that you're able to use all of that information that's in the past to come up with a solution that will benefit you in the future and in the present. And I think that's where, the machines and the bots will always fall short, is that lack of creativity that gives humans, so much more, sort of superpower. Okay, so if we take that lens and then we kind of, massage it a little bit where, okay, well, I don't need to actually transcribe this conversation that we're having right now. I don't need to personally do that. A machine can do that because it's a set goal. It's a set endpoint. It doesn't require it maybe a little bit of judgment after the fact to, just make sure that the spelling of companies is correct, make sure that the people who are, very minor things that could be corrected using human judgment. But the argument has always been that it'll get you, 80% of the way there, but it's getting to that final 20% that's really going to move the needle as far as impact is concerned. And, and Nick, talked about this during our conversation, that where, it used to take hours for, their customers to be able to pull the data and pull the information to create a report to send to their customers. But now they can do that in 15 seconds. And so that theoretically will free up that employee to spend more time with the customers and spend more time on problem solving. And I brought this up in my, Everything is Logistics episode, covering, sort of my overarching opinion on based on all of those conversations. And then I think remains to be seen is that what does work look like when we automate away the boring? What does it look like when we don't have that bandwidth, or we're using all of our bandwidth to focus on the hard things? And I think that's a conversation that will probably be had more and more in the next handful of years as work continuously, starts to evolve. Anyone who says that they know where this is going is lying to you, because we don't. If Uber Freight knew, where this was going, they wouldn't have blasted through all of their token allotment in the first 4 months of the year when they had a budget set aside for 12 months. Which is, kind of a good thing that their employees are, experimenting in that way. But it's almost like a modern problems require modern solutions, and that, as we adopt these new solutions, there are going to be new problems that pop up, but that doesn't mean they're not worth solving. And it doesn't mean the technology itself is not worth adopting. So I think it's very much like a mindset shift when, to be honest, the majority of the country is so fearful around this topic. And it's largely in part because of, sort of the doomsday, jobs apocalypse that a lot of these, large language model founders, Sam Altman and the guy who leads, not Andre Karpathy, it's Dario Amodei. Dario Amodei with Claude, who's the CEO of Claude. But they talk about how these tools are so life-altering, so life-changing, and you can find out how to make a nuclear bomb, with with these tools and things like it. And they've created a level of fear around these solutions, and now I think it's kind of coming back to bite them in the ass. So it's just a level of, you know, resistance, I think, too, that is, I think that that delta is only going to increase from the people who are willing to adopt these tools and the people who are staunchly against it, especially if they see it as, you know, something that's going to take their job. I think we've talked before on this show about this is a common problem with robotics, that when robotics are being introduced inside of a warehouse, they have to go through a level of psychological training with the employees to allow the employees to see the robot as a friend, as something that's going to help you do your job versus take your job. And so there's a lot of fear mongering around the loss of jobs, but I would argue that jobs will always evolve and they will always change. But I do believe that, you know, for a lot of sort of white collar workers and even some blue collar ones, that, you know, embracing this stuff is not embracing your own doom. I think it's actually setting yourself up for the future in as a low risk environment where you're learning a new informational way of discovery, if that makes sense. I know that was very long-winded, but it's just, I have an overall positive outlook on these solutions, mostly because it's process optimization and it's just figuring out like where the human plays a role. I think at the core of it, it's your processes and figuring out where human judgment needs to play a role. And if you automate a key part where human judgment plays a huge role, then you do that at your own peril. So that, you know, using what is that software called HeyGen, where it like makes like a video copy of yourself. And it's like at a high level, it's like, damn, that sounds kind of cool that maybe I could, you know, write up all these scripts and make an avatar of myself. And then you look at it and it's like, I don't even want to watch this. So who else would want to watch this? Like, I think we have to go through these things of like, okay, is this a good idea? Is this something you want to adopt? Or if not, I think that you were also seeing it too a little bit with like the Meta glasses, where it's like at first you're like, damn, those are super cool. But then on the flip side, you're like, I don't know if I like these things. And, you know, it changes as, you know, I guess you figure out where these new tools and technologies has a place in your life.
Yeah, you know, it's there's an article I was reading this morning. I'll share this with you, and you're gonna love this too, because it is on Twitter. As we were just talking about the fidelity of Twitter. But it's well written, and the guy is he's talking about actually, shout out to Eric Johnson, because he had posted about it, and I went and read it. And he's taking the AI look from like from a lawyer standpoint, right? Like, the guy who's writing it is like a lawyer consultant, and he's consulting how legal firms can start using AI inside their business. And at some point in the article, he brings up Coca-Cola when refrigeration became a thing. And he talks about how, like, of course, a refrigerator or whatever, I think it was General Electric, was like one of the first to start putting it out. And Coca-Cola could have said to themselves, like, oh, let's build our Coca-Cola refrigerator, you know. But instead, what they focused on was, now let's change our messaging that everyone loves having a cold Coke in their hands, because now we live in a world where they can all have a cold Coke in their hands. And I think the problem that we're seeing is in technology right now is that people aren't sure what their cold factor is, or they aren't focused on figuring out what to do about the new cold lifestyle. Instead, they're like, how do we build refrigerators too? How do we build our own refrigerator? Instead of saying, well, what is life now like with everyone having access to refrigerators? And I think that's where, and I think we're going to get into a little bit, and I can dive deeper into it. I think that's like one area where Orderful in particular is like really figured that out. And especially from like a lawyer perspective, right? Because the problem that he's seen, right, is that a lot of lawyers are like avoiding using this because of the fact that you bill on billable hours, right? So like, okay, why would I? So now you want me to like use tools in order to keep my customers. I have to now use tools that are going to have me bill less. Like, that's not great for the business model that we've created.
Which is so crazy because e-commerce and, you know, sort of online services went through, I went through this myself, you know, years ago. They tell you, you know, well, how much as a business owner, when you first go out, well, how much do you want to make an hour? How much do you need to make an hour in order to earn a living? But then you come to the mindset of like, well, why would I punish myself for working more efficiently? And so it switched from, you know, you bill on value. You don't bill on the hours that you're working. And if you have a lawyer firm, if you have a law firm and you're billing on hours, I would argue that you are already 10 years too late for modernizing your firm, because you should be billing based on outcome and not on the amount of hours, because then you're punishing inefficiency.
Clip it. Yes, 1,000%. Execution of law gets cheap. Judgment becomes valuable. Judgment is what you bill on now. And I think that right now is kind of like where people are lost and confused and trying to figure things out, is like, no, it's not about you figuring out either how to resist the change and say it's taking gerbs, you know, it's taking our gerbs. Which I will say was that I was at a trade show recently where someone said that. They're like, they were like afraid of the jobs that our AI would take. Okay.
I mean, the truth is that that phrase of, you know, AI is not going to take your job, but someone using AI will. Yeah. And that is something that I believe, but it does shake up a lot of industries. On my end, digital dispatch. I mean, we historically have built websites and we manage them. The people that were coming to me to have me build them a 5-page website, though, that market does not exist anymore. And it hasn't existed in about a year and a half, unless you're just completely living under a rock. So me as a business owner, I have a responsibility in order to keep the business afloat to learn how I can pivot my business and how to stay in business. And I have to evolve with it. And I use social media as a perfect example where social media managers, social media in general, brand awareness around social media didn't exist 15 years ago, but people evolved with it. Yep. And jobs emerged from that. And so, you know, it's just I think it's the level of the fear that comes from, you know, change just in general. We've had just such an enormous amount of change that's been forced on us really since 2019, right before COVID. And I would argue COVID was a mass, I guess, sort of it was a method of changing radically, where I don't think a lot of folks were comfortable with that change. And I think that the level of acceleration for change is only going to continue to increase. And people are going to blame AI for this. They're going to, blame a lot of things on just sort of the natural evolution of business and of roles and things that should exist and things that won't exist. But the market will tell you what should exist, and you can either choose to focus on it or ignore it, and you can try to come up with solutions for it. I mean, we're doing that over at Digital Dispatch of, testing out these our own AI agents and finding out a lot of them are worthless. A lot of them are bullshit. I can't tell you. I spent a week. Have you tried to build like an AI agent for yourself yet?
Yeah, it's my Bentley droid.
Well, I would argue that is a very good use case. I spent a week trying to build a damn email bot to summarize my emails and filter the ones that are important. It was a giant waste of time. It was infuriating getting it. I tried to bully Claude so much to get me something that I actually could use. And I just said, it's worthless. Let's just go back to our Gmail labels and we'll just continue to just filter the labels ourselves, because human judgment, I think, plays such a larger role in something like email versus another task where it's transcribing a podcast.
Yeah.
So it's learning where these things make sense. But to your point earlier, if you have not started changing your business to go from hourly and to become more efficient, I forget who actually put this photo out, but it was a photo of an invoice and it listed a screwdriver as 15 cents. And then the next line item was knowing where to put the screw, $15,000.
Yeah.
That's where we're moving as a business, where relationships matter more than they ever have before. Communicating in person matters more than ever before. Personalization matters more than ever before. And when you can increase efficiency in other areas of your business, it's going to be up to you to find out and determine where human judgment, human creativity is going to play the most important role. And it's not getting a video avatar to send out, 10,000 spam emails, because the spam filters are just going to become that much better anyways.
Oh, 100%. No, it's that knowledge. And even like when you talk about the digital dispatch aspect, it's like, but I'm sure what you're finding though is that everyone's building their website the exact same way. Little baby font, big font. I think I sent you guys a picture the other day. I was like, wow, look at this Claude website. They're all built. You guys are all built the same. They all look the same. I hope you realize that.
And that's well, have you heard about the epidemic of club flyers and how they all look the same? And it's, if you think about it from the lens of, okay, well,
that's
Claude, ChatGPT, they're going to reach, if they haven't already, they're going to reach a level of parity where they all have scraped all of the same information. They're all using the same sort of code bases. And it's how you use that information and then become more creative. Like, on our side of things, especially from a content perspective, I know that my take and my opinion is what makes me unique from somebody who's just going to go to Hey Jen and, come up with, a podcast episode and make up, fake hosts. And I've known of logistics companies in particular who have done that, who use Notebook LM to, feed it sources and then come up with a podcast. I mean, I love Notebook LM and I've used it for some content. But I don't know that I would willingly listen to somebody else's Notebook LM. If that makes sense. Like, I would rather just do it myself and get my own sources and then listen to it myself. But I have noticed that even when I do that, I don't retain the same amount of information as if I were to go to a YouTuber and that I have watched for years on a topic that I think before we hit record on this conversation, I was watching like the Spice Road trade. And, seeing a video, and it was made using, AI videos, and probably completely made with AI, but I still enjoyed the content.
Yeah.
But if I had the choice to pick a YouTuber that I followed for years that is going to cover the same topic versus this AI generated content, then I'm going to the YouTuber that I've known for years. And I think that it kind of goes back to a theory that I have where I don't think that people will care that they're watching AI content. I think that they will care if they're watching you make AI content, if that makes sense. Like if they've developed a relationship with you and they know you're a real person, then they want to hear from you. And they almost feel a little betrayed if you were to go to not to pick on Hey Jen, but to go to them and to have that create, a fake avatar of yourself and what you might say. I think people are going to just crave more and more realism as, just all of this content is just sort of flooded everywhere.
Yeah, I actually think that we'll see more. I think we'll see a push back into events as well, right? Yeah. Because, and even more so, like something I'm looking more into for the third and fourth quarter is just like customer dinners. Like, let's get people in a room together and just like chat. And that has a payoff too, because at the end of the day, there is a level people understand, like, listen, I know that you're probably using some type of email tool, right? These days, your SDRs are some type of automation. So before I sign a dotted line, I want to at least know who I'm doing business with, right? So I think that is also part of it as well, is that aspect. Like, I want to it drives, it makes seeing someone more face to face even more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like, now when I'm face to face, you better not drop the ball either, right?
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we have to sort of navigate through. But I you know, I think especially with coming up with and having the conversations around this guide and, you know, finding out where it's actually working, I think that that's sort of the exciting sort of frontier part of it as well, is like, you know, the folks who are elbows deep in this stuff and they're trying to come up with solutions, and then they come up with a solution and, you know, it might not work, but they might have to tweak it a little bit, or, you know, another customer might have another problem that, you know, it's sort of a maybe a whack-a-mole where you solve one problem but then a few more appear. I think that's sort of the nature of being in business and trying to problem solve and put fires out, and it's the nature of logistics in general. It's, you know, you're always going to have new problems to solve, and if some of these tools could help surface solutions and data that help make you solve those problems better and faster and more efficient, then that's the whole name of the game since, you know, since the container was first invented, since we had merchant ships, you know, that used to sail across the, you know, the oceans, and you're always trying to find a little bit better way of getting the stuff that people want. And I think that, you know, technology and AI solutions are not going to take any of that away, but they are going to evolve it. And it's not something to be scared of. It is something to be embraced, but your human judgment of where you choose to embrace it, I think, matters more than ever. This doomerism around, you know, it's taking all the jobs, it's taking all of our water, it's, you know, all of these things that are myths, but people still believe them. And it's a perception that has been put out there by these large language model companies, maybe to their own detriment. So I think, are you guys experimenting at all? And maybe you don't have to answer this, but I would be curious if you are experimenting with like your own sort of, you know, maybe like internal large language model, or because that's where I'm going to go next, is getting the reliance off of, you know, like a ChatGPT or a Claude and building it into my own models and my own, you know, system and structure. Because especially as, you know, cargo rex evolves, it, you know, data is our moat, and I don't want to hand all of that proprietary data over to, you know, Claude and then have them steal it all and, you know, then be able to.
I think that's what we're going to see happen next. I won't get too much into what we're doing behind the scenes, but I think that's where this goes next, is your own language models, right?
What did you hear about the Figma example?
No.
There was a high executive within Claude was on the board of Figma, and they brought them in and they were like, yes, let's, you know, let's adopt AI and let's integrate it into our, you know, the core of our systems. 3 days before Claude Design was announced, the Claude executive resigned from the board of Figma, and they basically created a Figma clone. And Figma, the stock price, Adobe stock price has plummeted since then. The entirety of their business is being called into question and called into, just, you know,
what's so crazy question about that though is like, so I suck at graphic design. It's all in here, you know, it all comes out of here. It doesn't come out of here. I hate Claude and Figma together. Like, they piss me off. Now, but it's like back to kind of like what we're talking about. A graphic designer, probably faster for them not to use Claude, I would assume, because they're just so good at it. I'm honestly kind of getting to a point where there are some instances where I'm like, Claude, I can do this 10 times faster by now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, again, I kind of think back to that too. It's like shareholders too. Again, like, you're panicking way too fast. Like, I just think that there is, and I also just think, like, I wonder behind the scenes, like, if the design aspect of things is even that important to them, you know, like.
Well, I think it was, I guess I brought it up for more the lens of like, Claude is billing themselves as something more than just a collaborative work tool. If
Sure.
you put your systems into these large language models, there's
Yes.
a very real chance that they will gut you, they will cut you out, and they will steal your
Sure.
business and then
Amazon
just
effect.
walk on past your dead body lying
Yeah.
on the side of the road. And I think that that is where it's fueling this adoption into more like open source models, and
Yes.
building your own models and protecting your own data. I think Claude and Anthropic in and of itself, they've made a very big misstep in that regard from
Exactly.
the business enterprise community.
I totally agree with you. I think it's a big overstep on their hat. It's a short term decision that I think is really going to hurt them in the long run. For that exact reason, like people are, it's because you didn't bring to a market a good, valuable tool. You brought like it's
Corporate
been so long.
espionage, really.
It's corporate espionage, and it's just it's bad quality. I mean, it's the same thing you saw happen with Amazon, right? You have to submit your manufacturing information to them so they can know exactly how that your tools or your product is legit, and then they just take that manufacturing info, and then they thought they could be smart and they could. But I actually think that's what's going to hurt them from dominating in the future, is that they moved way too fast on that. People figured it out way too fast. We had just recently like a town hall where someone was like bringing up Amazon supply chain, and I think, like on paper, could they be a monopoly? For sure. I think they've already bitten that foot off, though. That's going to stop them because of those exact moves. These like, and let's be honest. I mean, you and I know this because we've been in this. That's the funny part about the investment of everything. That's like just seems so clueless to me. It's because they get all this money so fast, and they have to deploy it. You can't raise the money that you get. Like the point of even someone like Orderful raising $35 million isn't to keep 20 million of it in cash reserves. Like, it's the same. So they are like, we got to deploy it on things, and then you move too fast. I'm going to get into a anti-capitalism comment in a second, but it's like you guys fell for it. You fell for the good old. You took too much money. Now you need to deliver, and you bit yourself in the foot. And you're 100% right. Instead of like maybe partnering with Figma or actually like building a strong relationship to make integrations that would make these tools actually valuable and make you an ecosystem tool. Yeah, you've like created this like mass hysteria that people are saying, oh, wait a second, maybe this is something we can get around if things continue. Like actually, I could have made a really funny point there, but it's like you went so. It's like when they say you go so right and you're to left now, right? It's like that aspect. You went so hard, which you had to because you raised too much money, and now it's like, yeah, I would love to see the long-term effect of it. It's why I do get nervous that the bubble will pop, because I think shareholders will start to realize that faster than they think. I mean, for my 401k, I hope it doesn't pop, but like it just feels like that's naturally where this is going.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, because I think that is just such a fundamental business misstep that Anthropic made, was damaging that relationship with Figma. And especially when they had made so many strides to integrate, Claude into all of the different Microsoft Suite products and integrate it as a layer on top of tools that people were already using. But when you then take that tool and straight up copy it and then make, it reeks of, we don't want to. I guess it's not the corporate espionage, but it's just from the lens of it. Well, it is corporate espionage, but then it's from the lens of like doing business long term requires, a good relationships. Mm-hmm. And I probably will never know what it's like to do business at that high of a level. I just could not see myself as a business operating in the way that, Anthropic has sort of operated, over the last, sort of few months. And so I think that they've damaged their credibility. I think from the folks who were using, AI, day in and day out, they have now forced that, especially me as a business. I cannot overinvest into one large language model now. I will diversify just to protect myself. And then I'm looking into solutions where I control the data and I control who scrapes the data and who doesn't. More importantly, who doesn't scrape the data, in order to keep the livelihood of my business intact. Because you damn sure can't partner with somebody like Anthropic anymore. I mean, look at the Microsoft and also OpenAI partnership that has kind of ceases to exist now. You can't get in bed with your potential partners and then try to throw them out when they're not useful to you anymore, and just bad business. And I think for a lot of businesses, they are discovering that, the hype was a little too much hyped, and that also at the same time, it was their own internal inefficiencies, but also combined with the value of their own human judgment that they have to sort of factor into all of these things on where they choose to make their investments, not just from a monetary standpoint, but where teams are spending their time. Because AI might save you time in some respects, but if you spend a goddamn week trying to build an email agent and it does nothing but waste you time and credits and tokens, then, there's a loss there as well. And so it's, we're all trying to figure this stuff out. But it is, I guess, sort of to close out this hour-long segment that we've been talking about. That was probably supposed to be, around 20 or 30 minutes for this discussion. Just to sort of round it all out, is that there are a lot of solutions that are being created using these tools, but they're boring. And that's where boring shows up, I think, more in your profit and loss statement, more so than, we wasted all of our token budget. I mean, your token budget, of course, is going to show up in your profit and loss statement, but the benefits of it won't. And so it's just weighing the pros and cons. And I think we're coming, the pendulum is swinging back to, valuing the human judgment, valuing in person, and valuing creativity. And then, kind of having a better idea that, it's not all doom and gloom. They're not going to take all of our jobs. They're not going to send us into water reservoir droughts. There are modern day problems and require modern day solutions. And so you had just brought it up.
Yeah.
But let's get into the next segment, and that's Orderful just raised $35 million. AI native EDI?
Yes. Yeah. An API for EDI that's also AI native. We said, let's stack her up. No, I'm really excited about this round, in particular because of the investors that are a part of it as well. So our friends over at Coke, the Coke Disruptive Technologies, and our continued friends over at New Road Capital have backed us on this one, and in big time with $35 million. And for everyone out there, Coke, I mean, you really know Coke Industries pretty well.
With a K. Coke with a K.
Yes, Coke. Yes. I was talking about the other Coke later, but yes, Coke with a K. Yeah, exactly.
You gotta specify which Coke.
Yes, the big ones.
It's a few.
Yeah, the big oil ones. And actually KBX, so Coke's logistics arm, has been one of a long time customer of Orderful's, one of our first, to be honest with you, especially from the supply chain and logistics standpoint. And what's really great about this too is Coke has, from a commercial standpoint, there's going to be a lot of really interesting other investments and other platform connections that we'll make because of this. I'm really excited for that, strengthening our relationship even more so with the Infor team over at Coke as well. Infor is an ERP that's owned by them. And then, of course, New Roads. Who doesn't know them? They've big investments, platform science, big relationships with transportation companies as well.
Well, real quick for folks who don't know what EDI is, because I read, even in our show notes, I was sending you stuff about ELDs because my brain is still like kind of jet lagged, where I was conflating ELDs with EDI. But for folks who don't know what EDI is, electronic document standard that was quietly run, or that has quietly run global trade for over 40 years. Every purchase order, every shipment notice, every invoice between retailers and their suppliers and carriers, that's EDI. It's the least sexy, most load-bearing tech in freight. Yes. And or with the new raise with Orderful, and we talked about this about a year ago, but for folks who may not remember, may not have caught that episode. Basically, Orderful, all of these, and stop me if I'm wrong, but all of these different retailers have different ways of classifying their carriers, their shipments, their products, and things like that. And what Orderful does is that they have already worked with a lot of these retailers, and they've templatized a lot of those different integrations. And so whenever you're looking to switch EDI partners, because I believe that the recurring contracts, if you sign with an EDI company, 96% of those companies stay with you. And that is a crazy, like in the SaaS sort of tech world, to have like less than 10% of your customer churn every year is insanity. And so EDI really is that quiet technology that has been powering the logistics industry for, you know, the last 40 years or so. So Orderful creates these templates, so it makes it easier for retailers looking to make the jump a lot quicker than probably a painful process that they maybe went through previously.
100%. And here's the thing, it's, I mean, God, you sold that so well. What we like to, how we like to call kind of our prospects or customers here is like, it's usually a leader and a follower situation. So a leader is one that creates those guidelines. A follower is one that's following those guidelines. So from different perspectives, if you are a Liquid Death, who is a customer of ours, you're likely following the guidelines of Target, Walmart, any store that you're in, right? Grocery stores, etc. And then you also have the leaders. So like the Targets, the Walmarts, the Kohl's, all of those who are, you know, telling the items on their shelves how to send that information back and forth. And another piece to that puzzle too that people don't always understand until they get hit with it when their full invoice isn't paid is if those things are wrong, you get what's called a chargeback. If that information comes over incompletely, that is taken from your invoice. So not only does it need to be correct to avoid those situations, but you also need to be able to fight those situations, showing that those things are correct. Oh, I love this case study. Oh my God, I'm so happy we put this out. Perfect timing for this too. And what's fascinating about it is you're absolutely right. I mean, actually, we'll talk about it in regards to the Everyman Jack situation. Everyman Jack is a company that's under the Carlyle Group. They own a bunch of brands. Steve Fox became a new CFO of the company a few years ago, and they didn't like their TMS. I think they're on SAP 1, their SOR, System of Record, and also did not like their EDI provider, who I want to say was TrueCommerce. SBS and TrueCommerce are probably the ones who come up through the most. They're the largest. SBS is publicly traded. We'll get into that later. And so you're right, Blythe. It's very much, I like to contribute it to, I'm going to show my age on this one a little bit. I like to contribute it to like your cable provider or your internet provider, right? You choose the one that you've heard of the most, that you know is in your neighborhood, and you probably never move because even though you don't really love their service, the service is going to be shitty everywhere you go, per se. And so you just kind of stick with them and deal with the hard times, even though you absolutely hate it. As Steve puts it in there, it's kind of like dealing with the IRS. It's going to suck no matter what. And that's how EDI has always kind of been treated. And the legacy players out there, another thing that you don't realize, unless you are probably working in the EDI or have signed EDI contracts before, is that you're usually paying some will make you pay per transaction, which is kind of crazy, which means as you scale, the bill goes up very fast. We charge, and most modern will charge closer to like trading partners. But on top of that, they oftentimes will charge a managed service fee. Because like you said, those guidelines change often. And sometimes the guideline changes are sent an email. Sometimes those emails go to spam. Sometimes I'm not going to lie to you, there's some people out there who send those guideline changes snail mail. And I'm not going to expose those guys because I know who they are, but they're bigger companies than you think they would be. So you know that letter gets missing or something happens, your stuff breaks, you get charged. So what these companies do is they grow off of the fact that they know you're going to need them for that smaller fee that they're charging per transaction, but they also know that you're going to pay an extra $15,000 on top of that to have us manage it. And that's the call out point that I'm really excited for, because that is what Orderful has always pointed to and said, honestly, is bullshit. And I think what's happening now is that people are realizing, oh, like, I was talking to someone the other day, someone we know very well, who was like, listen, I want to talk to you guys because I don't want to pay this fee anymore. We shouldn't be paying, because that fee is sometimes like way bigger than what you're paying just for the EDI service. You may be paying like $2,000 a month, but then you're paying like $7,000 just to like make sure it doesn't break. It doesn't make sense, especially when it is something that can be managed by modern technology. Now, it's going to be hard for you to probably do that yourself. Yeah, but you're going to look at that $10,000 invoice every day and say, that seems like a problem I'll try to figure out how to solve. And back to like the whole Coca-Cola point and everything, like, and how are people using AI appropriately? It's just like the lawyer situation. And you can see it in SPS's stock, because they've just collapsed because their shareholders get it. They're like, oh, wow, like this extra fee, kind of like the billable hours that we've always, had revenue off of, is going to go away. And instead of sitting back and saying, hey, like, let's kind of move forward with the times, which is hard to do for a company of that size, I'll be honest. Like, even if they wanted to do it, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, that's the change management aspect. And this whole first hour of discussion is probably the biggest bottleneck.
Yeah, like those people aren't going to do it fast. But there are smaller players in this industry that, like, I've recently heard are now building themselves with different language models because they don't want people to be able to access. I know a logistics EDI provider that's very ERP specific. I'm going to say it, Trimble. And if you're a Trimble user, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. They actually don't even let you see your data because they don't want you to see it, because they understand that you could probably, that's the, like, how they're holding on to you, right? And if you move away from us, you'll lose all of that too. So you're right. They have this 96% hold on you because they make it harder to leave than anything else. And that we just don't believe in that as a company at Orderful. Like, Eric has never believed in that. We don't believe in that. Everyone's moving towards this open source, plug and play lifestyle experience that can happen and should happen in EDI. So we look at it from like the two aspects that we talked about earlier, right? Like with the whole like lawyer situation, there's this technical jump that you could say, like, okay, we could use AI to now read a partner's implementation guide, map fields, catch anything that's ill-formed, explain why maybe something was rejected. That's like the fast win we'll see. Now, the slow clock, the clock that I think that we've jumped on that other people are like avoiding, is the extra fun stuff, the cold aspect, right? We talked about, like, all right, I'm going to sit back, or if we look at the lawyer aspect or the aspect you're talking about, the knowledge. How do we now make money off the knowledge?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how do you guys actually make money then?
Yes. How do we make it? We do charge by trading partner. Okay. But now what we do is we've built, which is Mosaic, that now fixes these extra things that really, really make that fee possible. So what does that look like? So we can now fix onboarding checklists, like the tasks that need to happen to onboard a new trading partner. And those tasks can take up to 90 days and often do with those providers. So when someone like Everyman Jack that you brought up is looking to switch systems and move over 57 trading partners within 6 months.
Real quick, what do you mean by trading partners? Is that like your carrier, your broker? What is that? What is that?
All of the above, depending on who you are. So for like an Everyman Jack, that's going to be potentially, like, it could be actually suppliers for them. It could be the Targets, the Walmarts, the Walgreens, CSV or CVS. There we go. It could be like the shelves, the stores that they're at. Oftentimes, so like US Express is a customer of ours now. So theirs is going to be like the shippers. They're connected to the shippers TMSs, so they can tender over loads to them. Shippers are the same way. They'll tender over loads from like their logistics units. We call that, I believe, a series 400 or the transportation series. There's an 800 series, which is more like purchase orders. Look at me, verbiage. But yeah, so when you hear like, okay, one trading partner could take 90 days and you know you're an every man jack that needs to do 57. Okay, so you're telling me something that's going to take like years to do. That's awful. That's why they never switch, because they're like, it's hard. And so we've used Mosaic to fix all of that stuff. So we now create onboarding checklists, and oftentimes based off of information that we've already received, already know the steps that we need to take the moment you tell us who you're trading with. Mm-hmm. The EDI teams who trust more of like the manual review over a model output, we've enriched more of that aspect into our models too. Also, like we said, the pricing models built around that, like you shouldn't need that anymore. That's how we bring cost savings right back to the customer. So it's realizing like what you can do behind the scenes. And in particular for us, right, is like the guideline changes. So once we know from customer A that Walmart's changed a guideline, we now change those guidelines for every single customer we work with. So they don't have to like worry about missing that Walmart information. We have that. And it's just doing it for you behind the scenes. So the points where like, you know, it's fun because it's something that oftentimes our customers, especially the users, you know, like oftentimes in EDI, the person that's buying it is going to be like a CFO or a C-level, but like the EDI analysts themselves will get our product and they're like, oh my goodness, because not only do we often take like X12 and we put it into JSON, which is like it's just human readable for you, so you don't have to figure out what the code per se is like trying to do. So that's a big part of it. But like what our customers see when they log on is just like the human aspect that they might need to change, or the question. It's very much almost like a Claude experience where they might log on and say like, this is broken, is it A or B? You click A and now it's fixed. Where in other legacy models that is being done via email behind the scenes. You don't have any control over it. You're just like, okay, hold on, I guess so. If you needed reports on that, you'd have to wait for that too. We have reporting available for you. That stuff's easy to give out. So I think what's interesting is I think like if you asked us maybe even a couple of years ago, like have we met the market? Maybe not quite yet, but like I think we've now finally, Orderful's met this market. We've raised this money and now we can just execute on building those commercial relationships and building an even more intelligent product and moving this industry forward to the point where, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we talked about the lawyer situation, those costs will come down. That world will exist where you don't have to spend that. And you can actually do
versus the competitors that are, you know, you get a $15,000 invoice and you're thinking hard about, well, what does this actually, everybody is looking at their tech stacks and wondering like what makes sense and what doesn't. And I think when you get a bill like that, that is that it creates an incentive for somebody to look for a different solution.
It really is crazy to me. And honestly, sometimes it's like, I've seen deal situations where it's like, they are just like, they want to handcuff you to them so bad that they will make even that transition awful. And that's what's awesome is that we're even like building technology to avoid that experience, to avoid even when you want to leave, them making it hard for you to leave. because there's certain numbers, there's certain ISA IDs, there's certain aspects that you might need to get from like a legacy provider that you've been with for 10 years. But they're gonna wait 4 weeks to send you that info, right? Likely from how we can consume your data, and that's the secret sauce I won't tell you on air. That what we're doing there, I think, is what's really going to change the game. When we are like, I'll openly say this because if we talked about Manifest earlier on this, for sure by next Manifest. Honestly, I think I'll be able to showcase this at events no later than like September.
Oh, wow.
Is we'll get to a point where you can drop your trading partner agreement like in a Dropbox. We'll tell you, hey, come back to us tomorrow. Come back to our booth tomorrow. We'll show you that you're set up. Like, and I'll openly say this because I'm telling people this as well. There are some ERPs that we are 100% onboarding people in 48 hours. So it's like, and what I'm talking about in a world where that person has been told by legacy providers that it will be 2 months. Like it will be ready to go in 48 hours. So I get really excited when I see stuff like that because I know we're taking a lot of the headache out of EDI. And it's not so much that like we want to make it sexy. Like we want that Plaid experience that I've talked to you about, where it's just like, you know that you could switch ERPs, you know that you could move systems, you know that you could add a trading partner at any moment.
But do you want to?
Yeah. And it's not going to be a headache. And I think what's really fun is like, we are just at an event called Summer Fancy Food in New York City. And it's an event where actually, if you like food, go to this event. If you're logistics something like food, figure out how to convince your manager to go to this event. Because there's not a lot of us tech people. There's only like 10 of us there. Because I think people just haven't figured it out.
Oh, you're giving away the secret sauce. Now
yeah.
EDI companies are going to show up.
Yeah, no, they were there. They're just not as good, But so at the event, the point of it is to, make your food, make your products. Retailers walk around, restaurants walk around, they test them. And the point is to hopefully put you on their shelves. So it's like a perfect trigger point for us. Cause like for us, it's like, awesome. Did you have a good show? You did? Perfect. The first thing they're going to ask you for is EDI. They probably don't even know what that is yet. But you as a business, right, want to get on that shelf as fast as possible. This technical step is going to kill you on making that happen in the timeline that you want. And so that's what I get excited for too, is like we have a product called Web EDI that's more for like those businesses that just got their first trading partner. Maybe they don't have much of a technology stack, but it's the same thing. It gets you set up right away. You actually don't even need to talk to any of our sales reps. You could go on our site today, put in your credit card, and you'd be connected right now. But it's like, that's the experience we want people to have. It's like, no matter how big their business is, they could make that switch right away with no problem.
Yeah, I was going to just ask, but you just answered it. It sounds like it, as you were talking, it sounds like an enterprise solution, but if you templatize it and you're creating this level of efficiency that's what you're talking about, then it naturally will trickle down into, the SMBs of the world.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. We've got, if you're a small business, like, and looking 1 or 2 training partners, like, go to our website today. You're going to have a great time. It's so easy to use. I can use it. Like, you don't need to know what EDI is. But now our job is to make that same exact experience for the enterprise level. And we are well on our way there.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, definitely from like a job security standpoint, it's like it sound, especially from having these conversations with you and, your time previously at FreightWaves covering a variety of companies, and then now being able to go inside and work for a company that you can use those media talents for. I mean, that's on like full display right here, where you're able to, explain something that, I've worked in logistics for a long time and I've heard the phrase EDI, but until we started having these conversations, I couldn't tell you what the hell it was. But, here we are now understanding, or having a fuller, I guess I should say, of what this quiet, the notes called it, the quiet technology that's been powering the logistics industry for 40 years.
Yeah, to the job aspect too, I want to touch on, because we touch on that in the Every Man Jack case study we just put out too. Funny enough, when we started that project, they were using a technology consultant to kind of help them, guide them through that process. And at the time at Every Man Jack, Raina and James were working in the EDI department. Raina actually does not work at Every Man Jack anymore. She now works for the consultant themselves, making more money, enjoying her life, doing the same EDI aspect to a number of other companies as well. And James hasn't had to hire someone because of the efficiencies. And now James, instead of worrying about mappings all day long, spends his time, because this is the fun part. Now that we fixed your chargeback issue, now when you get chargebacks, now you know that you can fight them because you can prove that it wasn't sent over wrong. So now it's like James gets to now focus on the chargeback. There's so many different things that he can do now in his job in regards to automation and things of that nature with the EDI data, that it's why I was like, I had so much fun doing this case study, because one, they were like one of the first customers I got to work with when I started here. So I've seen them onboard and go through like a full year of being a customer. They actually won us an award at NRF for that work as well. So shout out to Steve. He's the best. But what I think is really cool is not only through that experience, we saw someone increase, their livelihood in terms of what they're doing for their own family. And now James isn't stuck like dealing with mapping headaches all day that he absolutely hated. He can focus on bigger tasks that actually help the company make more money for the Carlisle Group. And can, email chat with me whenever he wants us to. So shout out James. Love you, my dude.
The ROI is everywhere.
Yeah, the ROI really is there. And so that's why even the whole like job thing I push back, because if anything, it like allows them now to use that data to like improve their business in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that all sounds like good stuff. And I think it's just one of the hidden areas of logistics that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's definitely, especially from the landscape of what is it James that you were just talking about? Yeah. He has a real dollar amount now that he can go back, and it directly impacts the bottom line, and he can prove the value of his own job and prove the value of the technology investments and the technology partners that in the decision making that the human judgment that he is being able to make, and he gets to reap the rewards. So that's pretty cool, where it's like a modern day, that whole segment and Orderful's take really, I guess, sort of bring I guess an extra exclamation point for the value of like the boring task of AI and how it's impacting, and where human judgment really plays a role and shines brightly for somebody like that. Okay, let's move into our next segment, and that's a hidden supply chain. Speaking of like hidden aspects of logistics and supply chain, but I just got back from a trip to Japan. And Blythe, Milligan here, Grace Sharkey, and this is Everything is Logistics, presented by SPI Logistics. And I wanted to talk about this story because everyone's talking about AI, everyone's talking about, sort of the chip environment, and, who the chips shortage, and how chips are in AI chips are in everything. And there's one company in Japan that is famous for heated toilets. And they're now a critical link in the AI chip supply chain. This is not a metaphor. It's the same company, the same kilns used to make their ceramics is the same ceramic craft that's used or lithography, I think machine is the way it's phrased. But the company is called Toto. And I want to bring up really quick
this best toilet ever.
See, it just... incredible. So hold on, let me see if I can pull up this video, and let's...
Pretty sure the Wynn in Las Vegas has Totos too. They're the best.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like very high end. Did you have some? Did you use a Toto?
Listen, my obsession now with bidets, like I have the Amazon like attachment bidet to the toilet, but it's not, it's, first of all, what changed my brain chemistry over in Japan is the fact that the toilet seat always stays warm.
Love that.
There's also another aspect of the bidets in Japan that they have privacy music. So if you're in a public restroom and you don't want to hear other noises from other people, or maybe you're doing something and you don't want other people to hear your noises, you can turn on the privacy music, and it's like nature, like water running, birds chirping, things like that. And you can turn the volume all the way up to where nobody else can hear what you're doing. Awesome. Or it's just, kind of drowns out the gross noises that go on in a public restroom. So that blew my mind. I would say the warm toilet seat, because I always like get up in the middle of the night to go pee. This is probably TMI, but whatever. I always get up in the middle of the night once to go pee. And when I was doing that in Japan, because it takes you forever I don't know that your body ever actually adjusts to that kind of time difference, but that was such a pleasant experience to be able to sit down on a warm toilet seat. Incredible.
You don't even live in the cold. Like, imagine, can you imagine my winters?
Oh my God. And the warm water that instantly comes from it. Anyways, so yeah, the Japan is far and away the best toilet maker in the world, but because they are so good at making ceramics, there are now a key component or a key part of the AI chip manufacturing. So I'm going to play this video from Nick Conley, and hopefully you guys can hear the audio from it. Hold on. Oh, almost. There we go. Here we go.
Our toilet is secretly one of the most...
Okay, of course. We don't have any audio. Give me a second.
Oh, no, I heard it.
Oh, you did? Okay, good. Why didn't I hear it?
Critical suppliers in AI chip manufacturing, and almost nobody knows it. Meet Toto. Founded in 1917, the company spent decades perfecting the ceramics inside their washlet toilets. That same ceramic expertise turned out to be exactly what the semiconductor industry...
Hold on. I'm going to start this over because I didn't hear it, but you did.
The company that makes Japan's most famous...
We'll get this. Listen.
Japan's most famous smart toilet is secretly one of the most critical suppliers in AI chip manufacturing, and almost nobody knows it. Meet Toto. Founded in 1917, the company spent decades perfecting the ceramics inside their washlet toilets. That same ceramic expertise turned out to be exactly what the semiconductor industry needed. Since the 1980s, Toto has been manufacturing electrostatic chucks, precision ceramic components that hold silicon wafers perfectly still, while microscopic circuits get carved into them at extremely low temperatures during a process called cryogenic etching. One slip and the chip is destroyed, and that is where every other material had failed. Toto's ceramics stay stable under temperatures and thermal stress that would cause other materials to warp or crack, making them the dominant supplier for the tools that manufacture 3D NAND memory chips, the same chips powering AI data centers worldwide. Here's where it gets insane. That ceramics business now generates over 40% of Toto's entire operating profit. UK investment firm Palliser Capital just took a major stake and called Toto the most undervalued and overlooked AI memory beneficiary in the world. The stock is already up nearly 40% in 2026. But the craziest part, the market still sees a toilet company. The chips inside every AI system you have ever used were built using parts made by the same company that perfected the heated toilet seat. If you want to stay updated with the latest tech news, follow...
Incredible, right? I would have never had any idea that a toilet maker from Japan would play a key role in our AI chip manufacturing. But yeah, it definitely does. And Gracie, you used to live in Japan, and so did you have were the toilets like this when you lived there?
So okay, so yes, they weren't all Totos, I'll say that. So when I lived there, I actually lived, which is like perfect because it was about the same as my family, but I lived with a more middle class family, where a couple of my other students, like a couple of the United States students that came with me, were definitely a little bit more upper class. But we definitely did have that type of toilet. Like, it definitely had a heated seat. that's like very norm. I'm trying to remember in school if we had those. I don't think we
What
did.
were you there for? It was just like an exchange program?
Yeah, I was there for an exchange program. So
How old were you?
7th grade.
Oh, seventh. Oh, wow. I thought you were about to say 17. So seventh
No,
grade.
7th grade. Yeah, I sent
You lived over there for what, a year?
Yeah, if you look at your phone, I sent you some pics last night too.
I did see those photos.
I didn't live there. No, I didn't live there for a year. It was about a month.
Okay.
And then they came and lived with us for the same amount of time.
Oh, interesting.
So it was like really cool. Oh yeah, my mother. Let me tell you, man. This she would like yell things. I'm like, she's not deaf. She just doesn't speak English. Like, but to my mom's credit, she ended up becoming a leader in the program. So I did it for 1 year, but she did it for 4 years in a row. So she's been in Japan way more than me. But yeah, so like we would go there. So for a whole like year, almost 2 years, we'd write to each other. So we'd take Japanese and then we'd write letters back and forth to each other. And then we spent like basically a whole month going to school there. And then they came like, I think 4 or 5 months later and came to school here. And actually, unfortunately, I don't even know if they come over here anymore because they did not like a lot of like they're big against guns. So it was right around like COVID and stuff. Like they just because of some of the big shootings, they stopped letting their kids come over. I think this past year they finally turned it back on. But it was awesome because we like full on went to school with them. Took Japanese classes. I'll say I was awesome at math because you know what? Numbers are the same everywhere. But it was really interesting too because like the one thing I take out of it that I'm like, wow, we have a lot more people, so it'd be a lot more expensive. But like in their schools, I first off, their overall school situation I think is 10 times better. By the time you get into high school, you have to kind of figure out what trade or like what you want to do, and then you go to a high school for like that thing. Like you actually have to apply to high schools in Japan. You don't just like go to the one in your district, which I think is really smart. But also you go, the dentist comes once a month, a doctor comes once a month, because there was like a day where like we basically had to go to like our own class because they were all like in line to see the dentist. We had like wood shop. We had like some classes like we didn't really have here. So that was really cool. But yeah, like we straight up just like lived at their house, had breakfast, lunch, dinner there. Like on the weekends as a group, we would go to like Kyoto, or like because this was in the Shiga prefecture. So I think it's in the prefecture south of where you were. But
it's almost like not a subdivision, but like a suburb. Like
no,
Brooklyn to New York, kind of?
Oh, well, I guess so with how big Japan is. A prefecture is like a state. So like we're the state underneath you. And actually the town, it used to be Konancho, but it got bigger. So now it's like Kokashi, I think. Like instead of a town, it's a city. And so it's closer to like, me trying to use my hand as a map. Japan's kind of like this. Like Tokyo's more north than we were, but no, it was awesome. And you really have to like, we had chaperones. So like in terms of the house, it was just like, it was a really great learning experience to like be on your own, and like know that you could like survive without your parents at seventh grade, like
well, we even saw like little kids in school uniform like walking to school, and come to find out they just learned from like very young ages, like under 5 years old, of how to be self-sustainable and how to walk yourself to school. And they don't really have to worry about crime or anything like that, because it's just it's unfathomable for something to happen to, I guess, a child. And I don't know how many families would allow their kids to walk a few miles to school, but it seemed to happen there. Maybe not a few miles, but to the closest school.
Especially in the United States now, it's like my parents live across from the school. At 3:00, there's more cars than I've ever seen. These kids, they're not even allowed to like cross the street in a suburb without like an adult. It's crazy.
Safe
yeah, and we had to wear the uniforms too. It was really fun. But what I think was super cool about it was just like, well, I'm interested from your perspective too, because I remember being clearly a kid and being like, oh my God, I'm not going to have any idea what these people are saying. Like, I was okay at Japanese, but like I could read it. And still today I can read it 10 times better than I could say it. But then I like got there and I was like, okay, as long as I know like Doka, like I know like where, when, and why, so, like where are you taking me? Basically, I could figure it out. And it's just like the language barrier wasn't anywhere near as bad as I had maybe expected it to be at that age. And the food is just, oh my God, the food is fantastic.
The sushi and wagyu was, I mean, we stayed next to the Tajuski, I'm probably mispronouncing that, fish market. And it was one of these fish markets that closes. Most of the shops start closing down at around noon, so you got to get there early. But you can pay $4 and get the best steak that you've had. You can get a giant crab leg for $20. You can get this sushi platter with like these fatty bluefin tuna. That's the best sushi you've ever had in your life, and so you can get for half off.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because until honestly probably like the last couple of years, and mind you, I went in 7th grade, the sushi, American sushi, is so like, I don't know how to explain it, but I just remember like for the longest I was like, none of this tastes good. Like it was just Japanese sushi was so good and so fresh, and like I don't know how to explain. Maybe not just like soaked in spicy mayo and eel sauce that like it was more edible, but it took me so long to like eat American sushi like on a regular basis, let alone like at all, because it was like just so fresh. Like the fast food was delicious.
Yeah, we had McDonald's while we were there too, just to taste it. You could actually see, because I have grown up on McDonald's. I loved McDonald's, but the last couple of years we've gotten it maybe once or twice, and it's just been gross. Like the chicken nuggets are just, I don't know what they're putting in them or what they're not putting in them. It just hasn't been a good. The patty, I always get a McDouble. And because I love the little onions on a McDouble.
Same, dude.
Pickles, ketchup, mustard. I love a McDouble. But the patties are like so thin now, like paper thin, where you can barely see it. You eat a McDouble in Japan and you're actually getting a quality burger over there. And it's like these people have just been, just pushing it just to see how much they can charge us, how much they can do the shrinkflation. And I think that's finally, like, speaking of, we talked about this earlier, of just overextending yourself and seeing how much you can just sort of, pull from the American consumer. And McDonald's is a perfect example of that, of how much can they charge you and then how much can they decrease the quality of their products. And it's, I think it's definitely biting them in the ass.
They come back like twice a year with like, hey, we have a new product, and they just threw like barbecue sauce and like fried onions on something.
The fillet of fish or the McRib, and it's like, if you can't get, thank God that they've never done anything to the fries, and the fries tasted the same. I will say that. But Japan had the spicy chicken nuggets. The spicy chicken nuggets were incredible. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Burger? Don't they have like a shrimp
I
burger?
saw it, but we were also like, the thing with Japan is that we wanted to eat so much that we didn't even have like an omakase experience. For folks who don't know, an omakase experience is like where it's like a 12-course meal that you go to a really nice restaurant and you get that full big meal. We were eating so much, but we weren't eating a lot. So when we did like, okay, we're going to spare a little bit of like stomach room for McDonald's, we split fries, one order of chicken nuggets, and one McDouble, and it was incredible. I should have took a photo of the actual like beef patties, because I was shocked that you could actually view them, and you could actually view each one, because it just hasn't happened, here in the States in quite a while, to the point where I'm like, I don't even want to eat this. Like, it's not even a guilty pleasure anymore, because it's not pleasurable to eat it. So I think that that, to your point, like, the food is just so fresh, and just the level of ingredients. I will say something that was slightly disappointing was some of like the strawberry snacks. I thought the strawberry would be on point in Japan, especially from like a 7-Eleven. Like, I loved their egg salad sandwich. I'm actually going to the grocery store tonight so I can try to replicate like the egg salad sandwich that I got from there, which is phenomenal. But the strawberry donut and things like that, I think my American taste buds just weren't there yet, because I'm like, I feel like it needs some red dye for it. Like, it needs something. It doesn't taste sweet enough. So that would be my only like mild complaint. But then on the flip side, I don't know if you had like the fluffy pancakes while you were there.
No.
Chef's kiss. Like, all worth all the hype.
I know how to make now, and I wouldn't do it on camera because it's not going to be like great clean. You can get like the egg where they like cut the egg and then it like unfolds. Yeah. I can like do that now. Like, that I think is fun. The one other thing too I wanted to ask. Well, one, I saw you discovered how good the air food can be. Maybe that was your post. Did you post flying over there getting food on the plane?
Oh my God, Japan Airlines, which shout out to them. They gave me a little model plane, the best airline I've ever flown. So nice, hospitable. I mean, I think we got 4 meals on that flight. Like,
and it's good food.
Yeah. It was damn good food. We actually had very good food on most of our flights, because especially that area of the world, and not just the Japan Airlines, even though we flew like, Air India, Air Canada, things like that, that I would not put them at the same level as Japan Airlines, but their food was still phenomenal, because it was like curry everything. And it was like eggs, but you're going to have curry sauce on it. And here's some roti bread. Like, it's curry everything, which I loved. But if you're like my cousin who was over in Sri Lanka with us as well for a wedding, because we did Japan and then went to Sri Lanka for a wedding. My cousin does not do seafood, and she does not do spicy food. So she was
poor girl.
Sri Lanka is, they're an island off the southeast coast of India, and so it's a lot of seafood and it's a lot of curries. So she was struggling a bit.
That, and then the other thing too is the vending machines. I don't know if that situation's still happening, but you can get. It
was like gambling, not just from like a food perspective.
You can get booze, you can get. I mean, I love the pop aspect of the machines. I think I might still have. Might be downstairs. I remember getting like a grape soda, and I was like, "This packaging is just so cool." Like,
what's wrong with kawaii? Everything's cute, and
See, you're learning. You got the language down.
Yeah, I got kawaii and I got arigato no gozaimasu.
Yes.
So yeah, just thank you very much after every conversation that I speak in English. So that was
Gozaimasu is even nicer. Yeah.
There was you had kind of touched on it earlier, but I did just want to briefly bring it up because there's big Disney head, and living so close to Orlando, I've grown up going to the parks. This was my first out of the country park that I'd ever been to. And for folks who don't know, Tokyo has 2 Disney parks. They have their Tokyo Disneyland, and then they have Tokyo Disney Sea. And Tokyo Disney Sea, if you've been to the Walt Disney World area or familiar with the brand, it's kind of like their Epcot. Instead of countries, though, like what Epcot has is different countries with different food and drinks and shopping from like 9 different countries. Tokyo Disney Sea centers around ports. So it was perfect for me to go to because, number one, they had a food and wine festival going on, which was a little disappointing. I'll be honest, because it wasn't anything like Epcot's. They didn't have like the carts and the different experiences, outside of each country. All of the food and the snacks and things were built into existing restaurants. So it just it was a little lackluster for the food and wine experience. Yeah. But they made up for it by celebrating their 25th anniversary. And so back to like the ports, I brought some like little
Did you know going there that it was all ports oriented, or did you just show up?
Oh, you did? So I did know because I was like, well, instead of like drinking around the world, we could just do like drink around the ports. But it was like, so
your husband was like you didn't know and you showed up. He's like, oh God.
No, I told him in advance because they have it. I bought this a few little like merch things. They have a mermaid lagoon. And so I sent him a video of like the mermaid lagoon as like one of their ports. So I don't know if you can see a little bit, but that's the mermaid lagoon. I'm showing an image up on the screen of like these little bags of like each port. So they have these like main ports. And so it's like Ariel, growing up a Florida girl, like I freaking love Ariel. Like Ariel is like top 3 Disney princess for me. She might be like 1A. I think she's 1B. I'm going to go Belle 1A.
Listeners still here, like very good conversation right now. Well, me, I'm a Belle girl. So that's my follow-up question.
Yeah, I think Belle is 1A, Ariel is 1B, and then Jasmine, and then Tiana, and then Aurora. That's my top 5, and I think it's a flawless top 5 if I do say so myself.
Especially because you put Aurora in there. Good job.
I freaking saw this TikTok of like it all being like ports themed, and then they have an Ariel port. I sent it to my husband, and I was like, I'm gonna crash out. Like it's. And I indeed did at some of the different shopping experiences, especially in the Mermaid Lagoon, because it's all kind of under the sea vibes. And it's a lot of like little kid rides, of course, because it is Disney. But they had Little Mermaid playing.
Ariel, if you've been to Disney World, you know that Ariel's ride is shit.
I actually love that ride.
But compared to the experience you're talking about right now, like a whole situation of Ariel, like Ariel's an afterthought at Disney World, Snow White is now owning that area, that property. And so I'm sure, sorry for all the Snow White girlies out there.
I've never met a single person who's like, Snow White's in my top 5.
Well, it's just like Belle. Like Belle now has like a little castle and restaurant, but she doesn't have a ride. But did you get to go on Belle?
At Tokyo Disneyland.
I know. That's why I want to go there so bad.
I chose the Tokyo Disney Sea because it was kind of like Epcot. I'm not interested in going to like a copy paste of, a park that I've gone to, a ton. Sure. But what is crazy though, is that you can see the castle from the highway in Japan. Like we were on the way to the airport and I was looking at this hotel and I was like, oh my God, that's such a fancy hotel. Where is that coming from? And then boom, it's the castle. And so for folks who may not be aware, Tokyo Disney Sea also opened up in 2024 an area called Fantasy Springs. And so Fantasy Springs is one of their newer ports, but it basically is all of the princesses and all of like sort of the fantasy elements of Disney into one area. And so that was a really beautiful area. It used to be like a separate ticketed place that you needed an additional ticket in order to get into, but they removed that rule earlier this year. And so getting back, I guess, to the other ports, in case you guys were curious, so they had the Mermaid Lagoon, I showed you that, but here is the Arabian coast too. So if walking around these areas, they're so beautiful, they're so detailed. The other one that whenever you first walk into the park is the Mediterranean Harbor, which hopefully it kind of clears up. If you're watching this on the screen, I'm showing up these little bags of like what is the theme of that different port. And then the other one is the Lost River Delta. So very like Central South America themed. So trying to get, the Arabian coast, obviously, Japan and, the Asia area. And then South America is that's what the entire park is themed around. So of course I went there. Of course, I had a fantastic time, but I just thought it was kind of goes back to the saying of, and I guess maybe to sort of round out this Japan segment, is that I heard this quote once, is that Japan is everything you know, but more. And it doesn't quite make sense until you're there, that everything you kind of like fandom wise, I mean, I think fandom culture is just so huge there in a variety of ways. I mean, we talked about the toilets, for God's sakes, like, everything but more. So everything that's part of your like sort of daily life, they've kind of they have people there that have spent years perfecting it. Ceramics comes to mind, of course, because of, the toilets, but even like Disney, like a Disney park like that, so incredibly detailed. The storytelling that goes into the park. And then even from, the gas stations or the convenience stores, everything inside of it, the food is impeccable. They sell cups of ice in order to mix, like, there's all of this maybe like drink culture where you grab all of these different types of drinks to make your own custom drink, and from skincare, shopping, for God's sakes. I mean, and probably my favorite souvenir from the entire trip, something completely free, is they have all of these different stamps that you can get for free and I don't know if they had this when you were there, but all of the like the train stations, pop-up shops, they have all of these like little stamp kiosks where you can take your little book, a little notebook, and they have a stamp right there and you can stamp your notebook. So a perfect use case was different temples have their own stamps. And so if you go inside the temple, you find the stamp stand, and of course, you stamp your little book and you can kind of move on. They do it at all the train stations. And then there were like some, if you follow like anime, there was a One Piece, pop up that had their own stamp there as well. And so it's a kind of a way to get people to come to your pop-up store. Not that they needed a stamp in order to do that, because it's so incredibly popular. But I thought it was just such a creative way to get people to explore different areas of the city. And I have one of the coolest souvenirs I've ever gotten from any city I've ever been to, that I can look back on. And they even had like, and I don't know that Japan or like any government entity created this, but they have an app that was like, stamps, in Japan, and you could pull up wherever you are in the city or in downtown Tokyo. I don't know if they did it statewide, but in any part of Tokyo, you could pull up this app and you could find all of the nearby stamps and go in and check out that business or check out that temple that you might not have known was even around the corner. Because that was another cool aspect, is like you just had these shrines and temples that are just existing in like downtown areas. So it was definitely super fun trip, and there were a lot of logistics kind of tied around it, but I thought those were probably two of the bigger like kind of pull stories, is the port themed theme park, which I don't know exists anywhere else, and then the secret supply chain of ceramics and how they play a role, how a toilet maker from Japan plays a role in modern day technology, where AI chips, or just chips in general, semiconductors, all of that is involved within that supply chain that powers our everyday life. A key component of that comes from Japan too.
Which is so crazy, because I think we've talked about semiconductors before, and I almost wonder if like Toto has like a ceramic like IP or something that like no one else could get because of how they're explaining that,
Well, I think it's two companies total that control essentially that entire supply chain. And I think I got an image that's up on the screen. I had all of my notes. I filtered it through ChatGPT, and it came up with this image that to use for this episode to talk about all of the different sort of toilets and the chip supply chain. So if you're just listening, it's just basically an image that kind of talks in detail about what we just talked about, just in a slightly, more condensed way. But it talks about this company in particular, founded in 1917, a washlet maker turned chip supplier. I think they actually had lost money for like 30 years until they started doing chip manufacturing, and not investment advice, but the stock price, I would
I know I immediately went to.
Yeah, that's it. I immediately added it to my Fidelity account because they're only one of two makers, and if I have the philosophy of investing in the picks and the shovels, and so this was one company that I was like, well, it sounds like this is something I'm going to invest in. So yeah, you can feel not investment advice. I have to give that caveat, but it's definitely something I'm looking into.
What toilet advice? It is not investment advice, but it is toilet advice.
Yes. And did you know that you can, if you too have invested in a very affordable Amazon bidet attachment that Amazon also sells, and I'm sure there's other people that sell this as well, I just haven't looked that far, but that you can get a heated warm seat, And you can also get instant heated water. I'm not sure how exactly they do that, but it's only a few $100. I would have expected that to be, added, an extra zero on the end of that. And I probably still would have paid it. But the fact that it's, you can get mostly the same thing as the two biggest features that I love, the heatedness, a few $100.
They're not even that expensive. Low-key too, I feel like I need a new toilet. That's weird. What a weird cut back. No, I cannot come back from that comment. I don't even know what to say.
But I think anybody who's been understands. Like they just understand it. And if you don't, soon you will understand. Amazon has a return window that you can take advantage of as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're really not that expensive.
It's only a few $100, and I say only with the caveat of it brings that much. It's like what people say whenever you're investing in a mattress. Like if you spend that much time sleeping, then you should invest in something that's going to give you a better quality. And I'm going to girl math it with a toilet seat as well.
Yeah, I actually same for pillows. Same for pillows.
Yes. Which Japan is also famously known for, like making custom made pillows. I bought a hairbrush from Don Quixote. I bought a lot of things from Don Quixote, but I bought a hairbrush that has changed my life. And I did not think it would be something that would change my life in that regard, but it is the best hairbrush I have ever purchased. I'll put a link to it maybe in the show notes if anyone's interested.
If you like golf too, I'll tell you, I haven't bought them, but there's a couple of YouTubers I've seen that have gone over for this. If you're a big golf guy, you can get golf clubs for the low in Japan. I know a lot of people will go over there, they'll buy a set of clubs, they'll ship them back to America. But you can get like a good set of clubs for a fraction of the cost in Japan as well. So there's a hack you could also get. Take your wife to Japan, get yourself some golf clubs. You'll love it.
There's so many things that I think with any country you go to, there's always going to be things that you wish you could have done more of or done again. And Japan is definitely up there. One thing that I wish I would have gotten that I didn't get was jeans, because they're just known for some of their textiles, jeans in particular. I probably wouldn't have been able to wear them, for living in Florida, for at least 6 more months. It's dreadfully hot. I'm even sweating inside of my office right now, and I'm wearing shorts and a kind of somewhat of a tank top, but it's so jeans were one of them. Eyeglasses were another.
Shout out to Eric for cashmere sweaters. They're cute.
Oh, dang.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's. I think we've kind of we've talked about Japan. We've talked a lot about different supply chains. Let's move into our last couple of segments here, because I've got a good one for favorite freight marketing. I can kind of go through this one pretty quickly. What about you? Did you pick out a favorite freight marketing?
I don't have a favorite. Actually, I do have one. It's not really marketing, but I do have one. But I do have also a source to port.
Okay, good. A source to porch.
Porch, yes.
Yes.
Well, you have me all poured it up,
I know. Well, I bought that domain name, and so that's why I'm thinking about it, because I got to do something with that. And especially when we've done a lot of these stories, which, speaking of which, I do believe we have a Freight Friends landing page, or we have a Source to Porch landing page on the Everything is Logistics site, and you are featured there quite heavily because of all of these stories that we've done over the years for Source to Porch. But since you don't have one, I have one really quickly that I wanted to talk about in the favorite freight marketing, and that was, depending on when you're listening to this, America just celebrated a huge July 4th anniversary, 250. And so because of that, there were a lot of celebrations all over the country that were taking place. A few of these different celebrations were in the works for a while, because it required, a lot of time and investments to be made in the graphics part of it. So let me show on the screen right now is all of these different companies from around the country that outfitted their fleets, either their trains or their trucks, with, you know, sort of a 250 design. One of them we have up on the screen right now is from Mack Trucks. They said, tribute to the land of the free and home of the brave. To celebrate the historic 250th birthday of the United States, we created a custom wrapped commemorative truck that you can see on display at the Macworld headquarters in Greensboro, North Carolina. So they say stop by all month long. You can take a selfie with the truck. But, you know, just some cool, you know, designs on the truck itself. It's wrapped really nice. Another company that did this as well is the Grand Canyon Rail locomotive that was outfitted with all of these different wraps. And I would love to see like the DIY behind this of how they actually did this. But really cool. But I'm going to save the best for last, because there was before I do that, I do want to share this video of how this kind of came to be, because one of the locomotives that was, I guess, created for this, or for this 250 campaign. Why am I showing all of these subtitles in a different language? Anyways, we're showing our captions in a different language here. So I'm gonna turn this off. Let's see, we got some sound now, but it's a quick 30-second video on one of the trains that was outfitted. It's from Norfolk Southern, and they did the whole wrap thing as well, but it was also one of their trains that originally hauled the Liberty Bell. So I thought it was pretty cool. In order to share with you guys, I'm going to play this quick clip. Yeah, so, you know, just kind of some little like freight marketing here and there. But one of the coolest things, and I don't know if you saw this, because I know you don't play too much on Twitter, but the tall ships, did you see any of that footage that came out? Oh, wait, hold on, you're muted.
No. I got mute. No.
So for the 250, so let me go back to my notes really quick, because for the 250, New York Harbor, July 3rd through the 8th, it just wrapped. It was the largest peacetime maritime gathering in American history. Tall ships from 20 nations sailed from the Verrazio Bridge, passed in review at the Statue of Liberty, and then went up to the Hudson to the George Washington Bridge. And it was flanked by 40 plus naval vessels in only the 7th International Naval Review ever had. It was 100 plus aircraft led by the Blue Angels. It was a direct callback to what's called OpSail, and it took place during the bicentennial in 1976, so 50 years ago. But it was, you know, just ship tours, and it was all these ancient ships that you've probably heard about, you know, in storybooks and things like that. First, I want to show this one tab because it's so beautiful. This is real footage that I'm showing on the screen right now. That is real footage of these ships in the harbor in New York. And tell me that does not look like an oil painting. Like, this is a real video that was.
Are you sure this is Game of Thrones from 2 weeks ago?
Isn't it incredible? Like, these are all like these replica ships that were created, you know, sometimes decades ago.
The ocean makes me nervous.
It's super scary in my opinion. But could you imagine being someone, you know, 500 years ago, to get on a ship like this and sail off to a country you don't even know if it exists or not? You know, the dark of night, you know, you got to deal with like scurvy and, you know, rations and things like that. But so anyways, all of that to say that all of these ships from all over the world came together in order to have what's called like it was called Sail Forth for the 250, and that was the campaign. So I'm just gonna play a short video, and it just shows all of the different ships that came and what country they came from. Shut up, Peru. But we got ships from all over, South America, Central America, Europe, Italy, Spain, of course, because obviously, they have a big sailing history, Portugal as well.
This man pissed me off.
Isn't this? I mean, to me, like they did such a terrible job of like marketing this. I even saw Sal Mercogliano, friend of the show, make a note of this, of how he had no idea this was even going on, and that there was no live feed of it. And so, for a lot of these like recaps or to learn more about these ships, you really had to rely on the folks that were there live in attendance and see the footage that they recorded. And so that's where a lot of this different footage is all coming from, but it was the largest one since the bicentennial, 50 years ago. So I just thought that was a really cool display of not just the trains and the trucks that are have a wrap that's put on them, but all of the effort that went into the logistics of coordinating all of these historic replicas and these ships to come to the New York harbor and kind of just emphasize the sort of the story of America. So I thought it was really, really cool. I think that was my favorite part of the 4th, besides fireworks, of course, but to be able to see all of those tall ships be on full display.
I will say, well, I'm kind of pissed because I missed that and Taylor Swift's wedding by one day. So close.
No one wants to go to that wedding.
Yeah, a lot of people, like Lively did.
Yeah, facts.
That's some hot goss. But no, it's funny. Like our hotel was literally like across the street from me. We just missed that.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, sad. But I will say, big Liberty Bell fan. Finally went there. In about 2 months ago, May, 2 months ago. Liberty Bell's awesome. Go check out that museum. And also,
that's in Philly, right?
Yeah, the Constitution Museum is sick too. And if you want this hat, you can go and get it there. So I'll say
that hat is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is freaking awesome. I saw it from across. Listen, I'm a sucker for a museum gift shop. Okay.
Yeah, if you're just listening, she has a baseball cap on, and it has an eagle with a tail and wings on the hat, on the main part of the hat. So not just a little imprinted thing. This is a full on like 3D eagle built into the structure of the hat itself. So that's why you got to watch these types of episodes over on YouTube. Go find us, Everything is Logistics, and you'll be able to see this at about the 2-hour mark if you're not watching this as an isolated segment. So I thought the tall ships cruise, if you're interested in seeing more videos from that, highly recommend going and looking at some of the top videos. A lot of these things have gone viral, and it just makes you appreciate, I think, too, like all of the old school like oil paintings that you saw from that era, and then you compare it with that video that we showed earlier, and it really is incredible of just how accurate a lot of those oil paintings were. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. So let's move on to our final segment, and that is.
Can I drop my freight marketing thing?
Oh yeah, I thought you didn't have one, but go ahead.
I thought of one last minute. And that's it. I'm going to give a fast shout out to Toy Story 5 because you brought us a container. We needed a container, a situation in a Toy Story movie. Not only did you bring us a container, you brought us a container in the first minute of the movie. And it immediately reminded me of the Ducks situation, except for instead of Ducks, it was Buzz Lightyear. That's not a spoiler alert. You can still see the movie. But yeah, I saw that and I was like, Blythe needs to see this movie. We got containers in Toy Story. We love it. So shout out to you, Disney, for thinking about us.
Yeah. It's very selfishly, I'll have to go now and skip all of the other ones that I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the rest of them, though I hear that they are all very good.
Yeah, I would actually suggest you watch all of them.
Do you have to watch them in order?
No.
Is it a continuous story?
No, you wouldn't, but you would be like, what's going on with Woody if you just skip to the last one? You would I guess I spoiled that Woody's still alive, but like theoretically you're gonna be like, if you didn't see 4, you're gonna be very confused by what he's up to. But no, you could watch him independently for sure. Especially you could just watch the first 10 minutes and you'd get the container reference,
Yeah, that's probably all. I probably just
No,
need to
they're
look
all
it up
actually.
on YouTube.
I would also argue though with you that they're the best sequels ever made in the history of movie sequels outside of Lord of the Rings. I know, calm down. I said
It was built
outside
as
of
a
Lord of the
trilogy,
Rings.
so
Yeah, I said outside because I knew where.
the caveat and the extra, examination, pushing up the glasses. That's
I mean, the
coming
Eagles
immediately.
could have probably saved him the whole time, but
We don't have enough time for this.
that's
You're
a Lord of the
wrong.
Rings show.
Yeah, just know you're wrong. But
for a very small audience, that's just a trigger I like to put on.
Matthew Leffler, friend of the show, will appreciate that, and he will also appreciate me just shutting it down and being like, "You're wrong."
Do you want me to do my source to porch?
Yeah, let's do that now. Let's Blythe Milligan here, Grace Sharkey, Everything is Logistics, proudly presented by SPI Logistics. And this is our favorite segment of the Freight Friends episode, and that is Source to Porch, where we each pick a product and trace how it gets from point A all the way to your porch. So I've got a Sri Lanka story. I've saved that for the end of the show, but you have one that I want to get to first.
Yeah, let's do yours last because yours is going to be pretty good. Mine is an interesting source of porch story, and it's mostly the porch exists in the middle of Antarctica. So this is actually
love Antarctica.
I knew you'd love this, and I think you were gone when this happened. So I almost wonder if you missed this situation happening. So about a month ago, there's an iceberg hanging out in Antarctica, and it just had a couple containers on it, and people were like, where did these things come from? Because they didn't wash up on container or onto an iceberg. They were just sitting on top of an iceberg. And that's when we all got to learn about a little something called and I'm going to say this wrong, probably, the New Mayer Station 3, which is a German Antarctic research station run by a specific institute inside of Germany. Well, outside of Germany, I guess you could say. So basically what this is it's a port, theoretically. It's a location where they can drop containers off for all the researchers that are in Antarctica and use this like port or station to move things around. It's the first of two stations now that are in the area. And it's moved repeatedly because of clearly the area it's in. So oftentimes ice shelves move, which, spoiler alert, let me tell you how this story ends. Or often snow just buries them completely. And they're used year round for, again, polar science. It's not just people hanging out. It's about 50 people that are stationed at this specific location. And it uses around 15 or so hydraulic legs to like lift itself up during times of the year where the snow gets like too high. So it's basically like standing on stilts. And I can send you pictures later if you want to like put them up. Or if you Google it, you can see some cool pictures of it as well. They focus on ozone monitoring there, of course, Earth's magnetic field, all that fun stuff. But what's actually a fun fact about this is once a year, this snow gets so high and the Empire penguins start like colonizing in the area. So every year, like the crew gets a good time to just watch all the penguins migrate and hang out. Trying to remember what that penguin movie was called, but it's those same penguins in Antarctica. If you're looking for it, it's Neumayer station. And it's used for, moving things around in that specific area. So usually they bring extra spare parts, food, fuel. It's a big fuel spot in particular. And again, oftentimes can be buried. So they use that's like legs to actually lift itself out of the ground. It freezes over every winter, and that's when the nice penguins come and hang out. And during that winter time too, as you know, as we talked about the opposite side of the world in the past, it has polar nights, right? It's just no sun from basically right now, late May to July, the end of July. So right now they probably think it's nighttime if they were listening to this. So shout out to all the New Mayer station people who don't know what time it is. And so basically, what happened originally was in January, They had moved, I think, 6 or 7 containers about a couple hundred meters from the coast, just to get them ready for a waste pickup. And then all of a sudden, shelf broke, and they had a big blizzard that came through. And when it cleared about 8 days later, the staging place was just gone. The whole shelf of ice, about 500 meters, actually just, caved off and fell into the sea, taking 7 containers along with it. And of course, they were able to chase that down. They had to get the big problem with these is that there was, again, fuel and waste in them. So they were really, I think, nervous about there being some type of like spill or situation. So they're able to finally track them down. A few of them did fall off and sink. A few of them were still on there. And now there's new regulation that basically the ship has to be a certain distance away moving forward, just in case an ice shelf falls off again, which, we're worrying, who knows. But it is cool if you look at the pictures. Like, it's like they're just like little baby ants of containers that sitting on this giant ice shelf. Oh yeah, you found it. Perfect. And then I think if there's like a fuel container, like trying to pick it up in there too. Yeah. So, hey, there's, I just think that's so silly. Like, there's just hanging out. Imagine like being a polar bear and you're just like, it's just me in these little containers. So yeah, why are they down there? Because everything and everywhere is logistics. And even those doing the science down in Antarctica, whether or not you want to believe, that's the end of the earth, that's up to you. Maybe it's flat, maybe that's where the wall is, but we're down there doing research, and that's how they send them, of course, things. And beforehand, as of a couple months ago, whenever they have waste, they would just move it to the side, but now they got to wait till ships are close in order to do so. So
yeah, I think one of the coolest parts about literally and figuratively about Antarctica is that they don't necessarily have, from what I understand, they don't have a traditional port.
Yes.
And so these icebergs are essentially the port. And so they put these containers as close to the edge as they can, because the ships that will pick them up, they get as close to the iceberg as they can. And then they have a crane that comes off of the ship in order to either pick up or deliver. And, they probably, with this image that we're seeing, picking up waste, picking up things that are no longer needed, because they can't leave anything there. You're not even, from what I understand, you're not even allowed to like pee on the ice, because it's just such a scientific zone that it's so cold that your pee is just going to just stay there, because it's not going to get like washed away by any rain or anything like that. It's just going to stay there for forever.
It's also crazy too. It's like, if you go to that other picture that shows it from like above, imagine just like there being a blizzard and waking up and being like, hey, where'd that go?
Ernest Shackleton remembers. Or he did.
But it's like
great book if you love logistics and you love Antarctica type stuff. Ernest Shackleton was the captain of the Endurance ship. They famously were trying to do a South Pole mission. They crashed before they could even reach the South Pole, but they survived every single, spoiler alert. It's probably one of the greatest survival stories of all time. A great 10 out of 10 book. Sorry, go ahead. I just have to use that as an opportunity, because that book is so good.
No, it's just like, me, the ocean already freaks me out a little bit. Like, I can't imagine waking up and being like, oh, okay, that's fun.
Well, in a lot of the book, they talk about, the ice flows and how, you could be on top of an iceberg like this, but because there's so much of it that you don't see, something could impact it, something could, crash into it, and the whole iceberg could flip. And so for Shackleton and a lot of his crew, this happened frequently, where they would set up camp. Like, imagine like losing, imagine your ship just being, just stuck in the ice. And then imagine it just being crushed by the ice to the point where like one day it's just going to sink to the bottom, which the Discovery Channel actually just recently discovered it within the last year, and had like this, this special edition where they showed the ship and what it looks like at the bottom of the ocean. First time it's been seen since it actually sunk. But imagine like all of that happening and then being like, okay, I'm going to set up camp. and then you set up camp, and then you have to have people watch guard 24 hours a day, because if the ice starts shifting, then everybody immediately has to get up and grab everything that they can in order to move to the area where the ice isn't shifting. It's just a constant, just like mental game. And I love Antarctica, so I love that you brought this story, because I think it's just such a fascinating look into the human psyche too. And I think that what happens a lot on Antarctica, we're going to see a lot of these situations happen in space. So I think that, we're, from whatever these issues that are happening in Antarctica, you're gonna, I mean, there's what's to say that this won't happen on like a meteor, or part of a planet, trying to set up these different like ports and ways to deliver supplies, and how and just extreme environment impacts all of that. So yeah, super cool.
Just imagine like a bunch of Buzz Lightyears just walking out of those containers.
Or like, what is that, like a King Kong or Godzilla? I mean, that's where you enter the other world, I think is. I don't know the exact phrase that they use, but yeah, that's how you enter the upside down world that King Kong lives in.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I love Godzilla. Don't get me started with Godzilla. That's a low-key thing people don't know about me. I am a big Godzilla fan.
Oh, so they had some epic merch in Japan, obviously around Godzilla. So we did get a couple things, because they had this entire like mall, like a 7-story mall, and one of the floors was like Nintendo and Sega and Godzilla and just all of those like different fan franchises. Bunch of stamps too, which is cool.
Don't you love how they put the food, like when you go to restaurants and stuff, they put the food like already made so you can like see. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do that in Miami too.
Oh yeah. That's real South for me, dude. You took me there once. Key West is as far as
maybe we should do a story on this in the future too, but there's a whole like market for it's like the fake food that you can show as a display for customers walking by. Like it's an actual like craft that people try to eat. Obviously it doesn't look as good as like the real thing, but it looks pretty freaking close to where you have to like touch it just to see if it's like real or not.
At that show, I met a girl who like, that's what she was there getting leads to take photos of food for like their, websites and stuff like that. I go, let me ask you this. Is the mashed potato ice cream thing legit? And she's like, she basically like read me for Phil. She's like, yeah, if you're not a good photographer. And I was like, whoa, shots fired. But I guess it's true.
I've heard glue too. Glue is another one that like you show like melting ice cream and ugh. Okay. Speaking of things that are not ugh, I want to talk about Sri Lanka, because it was probably one of I've been very blessed enough to visit, a few different countries in Sri Lanka. I didn't know what to quite expect, but I was blown away at the hospitality, at the food, at also just the affordability, especially as an American coming there and being able to, take part in certain activities. It's if you think of like, if you've been to like a Caribbean island, imagine like an Indian Caribbean island. That's essentially what we got to experience, with like the best seafood, the best curries. And this is also an area of the world that has thousands and thousands of years of trade history. One of those, and one of their top commodities, especially from a historical standpoint, is tea. The country used to be called Ceylon, based on the Ceylon tea, and that's what Britain called it. And that was I don't know how many folks are aware of like the original opium wars that took place between Britain and China, but China held on to like the tea dominance for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And so a lot of the secrets around like cultivating tea and brewing it and not just shoving it and grounding it in a powder and putting it into, a bag, which is how most of us experience tea. But like hand rolling it and picking off different leaves during different parts of the cultivation process, and how it makes white tea. And then if it oxidizes, it makes, green tea. If it oxidizes even more, it's black tea. It's all of these different variations that are all grown in a very hyper specific climate. And so when Britain did their corporate espionage, they actually sent a botanist, made him like grow out his hair and shaved it in like a way that traditional Chinese men shaved like most of their head, and then had braids, coming out for like one area of the head where the hair was allowed to grow. The botanist from Britain like grew his hair out, posed as a trader from another part of China, and was able to infiltrate, certain parts of the country to find out, where foreigners were not allowed, to find out the cultivation practices, in order to, be able to take these tea secrets, which this drink was exploding in popularity over in Britain, because I think one of the kings in Britain had married a woman from Portugal, and she was already in the tea game, which Portugal obviously has a very, complicated colonial past and colonial history. And they were in, sort of the Southeast Asia of the world long before Britain was. And so because the queen was, drinking this tea and loved it so much, naturally other people started becoming like a fashionable thing. So the demand for tea just exploded through the roof. But China did not want to give up the secrets of growing it and cultivating it, because that was their, an economic powerhouse for them. So Britain gets the spy, he infiltrates it, spends years with the different tea experts, and he documented everything on how they were growing it, the environments they were growing it. It requires a specific altitude and humidity. And so then they took all of those trade secrets, and then they brought that to a certain part of India, but mostly Sri Lanka. And so a lot of people will think, well, all the tea farms were just brought over to India. India is a big ass country.
Yeah.
But Sri Lanka, the entire island, has the perfect growing environment for tea. And so it used to be that the country, I think in the 1800s, they grew coffee, but disease wiped out all of the coffee plantations. And so that's when they switched over to tea. And it was called Ceylon. I think it was around the 1970s that the country's official name was changed to Sri Lanka. They also went through a bunch of internal issues, civil war, things like that over the last 100 years. But tea has become their number one commodity, in addition to cinnamon. So for folks who may not be aware, cinnamon is also just one of these products that really only grows, and in Ceylon cinnamon in particular is used in a lot of cooking, used in a lot of spice trade. In fact, the spice trade was around, was the first trade route that was established before the Silk Road. So the spice trade, pepper and cloves and.
Question is cinnamon come from the ground? How does it grow? Is it
good question? It comes from a tree, and so basically the tree grows, and if you chop it off, the way it's sort of manufactured is that you chop that part of the tree off, and then another one will sprout up, but it's the bark. So I have some Ceylon tea here that we bought there, and basically what it is that it's the outer layer. What's up?
Does a tree smell like cinnamon, or is
yes.
it kind of
So it smells like cinnamon. And if you look at, a piece of raw cinnamon, so this is the bark from around the tree. And so what they do is they make a small, after they chop the tree down, they make a small cut into the side of the tree, and they rip the bark from the outside of the tree itself. And so that you can kind of see the shape of a cinnamon stick. It's from that bark that has been cut off of the outside of the tree. And then when it dries out, it shrinks. And so the middle of it is also other parts of the tree that they kind of stuff in there. So it's the manufacturing process of both tea and cinnamon have to mostly be done by hand. But it also requires these very specific growing environments. And, the people of Sri Lanka have spent hundreds, probably thousands of years, perfecting a lot of, especially the cinnamon process. But a lot of their other spices, pepper is another one that fueled the spice trade as well. I know that there's a couple of other spices. Cloves is another one. I'm blanking on the name, but I know it starts with a C. But a lot of these different spices all originated in Sri Lanka. And I'm also, I guess, caveat, I'm reading this incredible book. So it's called A Splendid Exchange, and it basically talks about the history of supply chain and how all these different trade routes were started. I'm less than 100 pages in. I don't know if you can see like how many dog ears. Oh wait, here. Like how many dog ears I've already made. But apparently like the furthest, China very much has been famously in like an isolationist type of country. But when they did start sailing, the furthest west that they would go was Sri Lanka. And so they would essentially bring, their silks and their teas and all of their different commodities. They would bring them to Sri Lanka. And then from Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka is like even modern day, like 70% of the country is all transshipments. And so things are brought to Sri Lanka, and then Sri Lanka is a divvying up point. And so freight moves through the Suez Canal, freight moves through India, especially from, China to the Middle East. That is like Silk Road heaven. And so where the spice routes originally formed also fueled where the silk trade took place as well. And what I think is like the coolest part of this story is like not only how long this country has spent cultivating and perfecting some of these commodities that are just staples in our homes, but it's also from the lens of how they used all of the different trade routes and how other countries discovered all of these different spices that it just fueled public interest into this area of the world. And so it's just, I was blown away at like the hospitality of the country as well. I will say doing Japan and Sri Lanka on this same trip, like the Japanese people were not by any means rude or not welcoming. They were very, very friendly. But I would say that the Sri Lanka people were they wanted you to be engulfed in their culture.
Out of their way. Yeah.
Yes. So they wanted to teach you. They wanted you to learn. Whereas like Japan, you can almost, I don't want to say, I don't want to sound rude, and because they weren't rude by any means, but it didn't feel, if I had to compare the two, one was very welcoming and one was just kind of reserved.
The niceness, I think, of Japan is almost a tourist niceness because I think they understand their economy kind of runs on that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So it's like, I'm not saying that they're being nice as they have to, but I think it's like, that's the sense. It's like your visitors, we treat visitors this way where it sounds like, I was also going to ask you too, like Sri Lanka, that going there with family, seems like very interesting as well. Like that's like a country where I would almost like want to go with someone I knew who lived there or something, so I could like fully be in it. So that's awesome.
And then it's showing another image here from the Sri Lanka, like then versus today sort of history. Their textiles are also incredible. So like think like linens and things like that, like buying like quality products, coconuts as well. Like if you go to the Caribbean, coconuts they've become so much of a standard, not a standard commodity, but a high demand commodity, where it's very difficult to like just walk through the jungle and like find a random coconut kind of, sitting on the ground to the point where like you can regularly have access to coconuts, if that makes sense. And Sri Lanka are freaking everywhere. my cousin is from Jamaica, and he was talking about how in Jamaica, like if you see coconuts on a tree, like someone is climbing that freaking tree and taking down all of them coconuts and keeping them. But in Sri Lanka, they were everywhere. So coconut trade was, another like huge thing for them. Gems and jewelry. So there's a lot of like sapphires that are only found in Sri Lanka. Tea is obviously. What's up?
It makes sense too. It just makes total sense. I mean, India is quite small on this map, but like it is the center, and not having to go completely inland to India to like for trade, like
especially. And I think it's like 50 nautical miles that separates the two countries. Like obviously, this is an AI generated image of what's on the screen right now, but it's much smaller, obviously, than India.
But it is like a center of like Southeast Asia, Arabia, etc. It'd be interesting as you like read that book too, if like the politics of it all, because like you could use Sri Lanka as this like kind of safe haven, right? Not have to worry about like getting too deep into India or too deep into something and refuel or whatever they would consider that back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there was a lot of like, complications as well, especially under British rule. I think that kind of goes without saying. But there's, I guess, from like a big business standpoint, it still feels like a country that has largely been ignored, with the exception, I would say, of tea manufacturers. And there was one video that I was watching before this that was talking about how, like Lipton, like the guy who like Mr. Lipton himself, like had a tea farm in Sri Lanka. But what they did is that they took all of the tea and they just sort of mass produced it. But now there's a movement that's going on within Sri Lanka because harvesting cinnamon, harvesting tea is very labor intensive. And like we've seen with other commodities, especially cocoa, like we've talked about on this show, where the farmers are the ones that are making the least amount of money. That is very much the case here with Sri Lanka too, where it's I think the quote is like, you look around at different tea farms and it's all older people that are doing this job. Younger people are not doing this job. But one association that is trying to make a difference in that is called CATA, and that is the Ceylon Artisan Tea Association. So they're trying to teach the not to get your tea in like these small little ground up powdery bags where it impacts the taste, but to go to the artisan route that supports, actual farmers, actual people who are taking the time and dedication of, thousands of years of knowledge, and then to be able to keep that practice still alive. So I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's cata.lk. But that is for the Ceylon Artisanal Tea Association, and they aim to elevate tea farming communities, promote environmental sustainability, deliver exceptional quality artisan teas or artisanal teas. And that was one of the big things too that I wish I would have been able to do like in Sri Lanka, is like take a tea tour. But just driving throughout the countryside, all we saw were like these farms of tea, of cinnamon, rice paddies. Another amazing thing too is you just have freaking elephants just walking around everywhere, just like wild elephants off the side of the street. They have safaris there too, so it very much is like this this country that I didn't know would like touch my soul in the way that it did. But it just this one of those places where it's like I will absolutely be back. In order to be able to take part in stuff like this, with the tea plantations and things like that. And I think I'm not alone in this sentiment as well. It's like, especially with a country that sort of like just hits you at a soul level, whereas like Japan, I loved and I had a fantastic time. Didn't hit my soul like the Sri Lanka trip did. And going with family definitely helped a ton. But when I shared a picture standing in their capital, which is Colombo, and their port city of Colombo. You can see like the port and the trade lane in the background. And friend of the show said that a lot. We're lucky enough on Everything is Logistics to have a lot of friends of the show. And one of those is very near and dear to both of us, and that's Janet Labuda. She is the head of trade and customs, I believe, at Maersk, and she shared with me that she has she commented on the LinkedIn post, and she says, I have a wonderful dear friend there that I've known for 40 years. She is a Holy Family sister. Right now I'm doing a fundraising for her to help a destitute family get a house built and a place where village children can gather for studies and extracurricular activities. She talked about, I'm glad you had a chance to visit, but they had a devastating cyclone hit earlier this year, which flooded much of the country. And so she has been working with this organization, Sisters of Sri Lanka. I guess she met them about 40 years ago when customs transferred me to the Netherlands. My job was to sow goodwill in the European customs services. She had completed a tour of various ports and border areas in Italy, but she was flying back to the base, and she shared her flight with the two Holy Family religious sisters, Sister Rita and Sister Rainey from Sri Lanka. And they were on their way to Peru, another great country, to do missionary work. But she developed a relationship with these people. She has since helped to raise a lot of money for different causes. I think, one girl she talked about was going blind. So she helped, fund surgery in order to help her. Just, an organization that she likes to partner with and raise money where, if you donate 100 USD to Sri Lanka, that could make, I think we looked it up where like the average citizen in Sri Lanka earned about 450 USD per month. And so when you think about like how much the dollar could go, this was a perfect use case. And I just wanted to shine a light on it because Janet was talking about how they're raising money for this small area of the country where they had the cyclone hit. And then also, for this particular story, the husband left one family and all of the children now, they don't necessarily have a place where they can live in an appropriate way. It's just basically a bunch of cinder blocks, no roof on the house, things like that. So it's, if you have any means, I'm going to put an address in the show notes of where you can send a check in order to help. But Janet, I think is, I would say one of the more trustworthy people in this industry. She is probably my favorite interview of all time. I think she's featured like on the homepage of Everything is Logistics. But she talks about it's very much a grassroots effort in order to raise money on her part. A dear friend is donating $5,000. So wanted to make sure I had a connection to a 501c3 here in the States. She's gotten some other friends to help out with this. So folks are making checks out to the Poor Clare Monastery. She sends the checks to the monastery, and then they do a grant to the sisters in Sri Lanka. I mean, because you have to understand, like, some of these folks like don't even have a bank account. So for a lot of these organizations, like the logistics of getting funds to the people that need it, they rely on a string of people to help. And Janet is one of those people that wanted to be able to help, not just now, but she's helped them out previously. So I will put an address in the show notes in case you wanted to help out with this particular cause. I mean, Janet is more than willing, I think, to help shed light on additional information if you have any. But she even says herself, it's kind of convoluted, but it works. And 3 CPAs have weighed in on it just to make sure that she's doing everything on sort of the up and up of, donations and making sure that they're getting to the right place and, all of those different logistics.
Janet's job for the longest period of time was to like go to on site in China and make sure that place was legit. So you're 1,000% right. If anyone's going to tell you a legit charity, it's going to be Janet. So,
but I just thought it was so sweet that she, shared that story and, just the fact that, being in that, there were some Uber rides, girl, 13 cents is all that we were charged.
I was just about to say they have Uber too.
Well, it's called Pick Me. Cool. But it works just like Uber. They have, even like the delivery for food and things like that, all within the app. And you can order a tuk-tuk, which is like those, almost like I don't want to say like a golf cart, but it's like the driver in the front and the seats in the back. And I don't know why we don't see more of those in the States, because I think they're superior to golf carts. I would love to. I even looked up earlier, like on Temu, to see if I could find like a tuk-tuk. Because I don't know if you've seen like any of like the mini boats that Temu sells, and like a bunch of rednecks are trying them over the July 4th weekend. They work surprisingly well, and so I said, let me see if they do tuk-tuks as well, and they do. But it's
thinking about getting my aunt a new golf cart for her cottage too. I get her a tuk-tuk instead. She'd hate me for
but I thought they were fantastic. So
that trip was awesome. And like, I don't know if you're getting to it, but you got to like to see the port too, like how old that port was. Like, it
actually looked fair. So Sri Lanka is also
like 250. I'm sure you go to places like that and you're like, wow, this is cool, you know?
Yeah. It definitely, I mean, I think just traveling in general, unless it like challenges you, and Japan didn't really challenge us in that way, but Sri Lanka did.
Sure.
Where it's like you land and there's a bunch of international flights landing all at the same time. It's freaking chaos at the airport whenever we first land. But as soon as we get out of the city, or not, we get to the city rather, because the airport that you land in is about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour from the city of Colombo. But once you get to Colombo, like it is just, I would say very comparative to like a big South American city where you have some beautiful parts, but then you also have, some parts that, just, a little questionable.
Sure.
But I never felt unsafe. The people, like I said, were incredible. They could not wait to like share stories about their country. Most of them speak English, which was a difference from Japan, frankly, where we were in a major city at like Tokyo, and there were a lot of people that, their English wasn't great. And, obviously that's on the tourist in order to learn their language. But when you experience something like that, where it's almost, you feel a little bit lonely in Japan when it's just the two of you, like just me and my husband, versus when we go to Sri Lanka and most people speak English in addition to family being there. And so it was like we had this like really interesting group of family and locals, and we got to see a different side of the country that not a lot of people, I think, get to see. So I just 10 out of 10, can't wait to go back. I was super happy. A friend of the show too, Eric Johnson, who's going to be a guest on the show soon too.
Nice.
He called Sri Lanka his favorite country in the world.
Talk about a traveler. That guy has been there, and that's awesome. That's cool. It's sad too, because I think like my only relation to Sri Lanka would be like the tsunami, right? Of like, what was that? 2004. Yeah. And so it's like, from like a Westerner's viewpoint, you're like, I hope that country's still surviving. And it's like, oh, they're thriving, honey. Like,
oh my God, the waves are this, because for folks who may not know, especially in the Indian Ocean, for 6 months out of the year, the winds flow one way. And then for the other 6 months, they flow the opposite way. And the side of the island that we were on the western side of the island for the most part. Those winds are no joke. And I grew up going to the beach. I know what, tropical storm and hurricane waves look like. That was it. It was hurricane level type of waves. You're not stepping a foot in. I mean, I dipped my toes in just a tad, but it wasn't 5 minutes after doing that another giant wave came in. Soaked half of my pants, like up to my knees. Like that is how aggressive the ocean was. So I did not take a step outside of that one time. But there was no swimming in the ocean. I know Sri Lanka is also like a surf haven as well, but that was probably on the other side of the island, and damn sure wasn't on the side we were, because you would literally die. It was scary. Like, and I don't mess with scary waves.
I love it.
It was very scary.
Yeah. Well, happy to have you still here. And yeah, it looked awesome. The wedding looked great. The dress looked great. I showed my mom too. She's like, wow, beautiful. So, yeah. Congrats.
And shout out. I'm excited to try some of the Ceylon tea. I didn't get a chance to show you guys on the screen, but look how cool that little tin is. Little elephant looking tin.
I was going to ask you, the cinnamon, have you tried it yet? Like, does it taste better? I always thought cinnamon has like a very artificial taste, and I'm just wondering if it's like,
I would say so. I haven't tried the cinnamon yet. I was waiting to do this episode first. This I actually opened it right before we started hitting record. But it doesn't smell as strong as, I guess, other variations. Yeah. And I wonder, because Ceylon, you can only get Ceylon cinnamon from Sri Lanka because of the environments and the altitude and all of the different components that you can actually grow that particular tree. But I will say that they put cinnamon on so many things. They even make like cinnamon toothpicks that are apparently perfect to use after eating any kind of curry dish, because it gets rid of the curry taste in your mouth, and then you can actually eat the toothpick as soon as you're done with it. So we brought back some toothpicks as well, lots of different spices that I can't wait to try. We're actually as soon as we get done with this recording, which is any minute now, we're going to go over to the Asian Mart, and we're going to try to pick up a bunch of things so we can recreate the things that we had there. Egg hoppers is one of them. There's also this like coconut relish that was to die for. They put on everything. It's called pol sembol. I'm going to try to get the ingredients to make that just so I can have it in the fridge and start putting it on everything. So yeah, we're going to do some green curry too. So yeah, we're going to have a little adventure time trying to recreate our Japan and Sri Lanka experience and try to get some of these staples in the house. But I guess that's my my tourism plea to any folks that are considering in Asian country. Think about Sri Lanka, because it was incredible, and like I said, the people were even better.
Sold me.
Also, maybe we can convince like a customs official over there, their customs department, anyone involved in global trade. If you want to have a Freight Friends episode, we are available.
Yeah, Merit sponsored. Janet takes us over there. We do a girls trip with Janet.
Come on, Janet.
Dude, a girls trip with Janet would be fire. That would be so fun.
She probably knows all the spots too that we need to hit up.
Exactly. Like she would take you into like a corner or something, and we'd have like the best curry in the world. I love that.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. Janet, finish that book and let's go to Sri Lanka.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I think that about does it for this show. A new record, almost 3 hours for this episode. We told ourselves we were going to be done at 4:30, and yet here we are starving at 7 p.m. I don't know if I'm speaking for you, but I know I'm freaking starving.
Yes, I am starving. I'll end it with where you can find me. You can find me at LinkedIn. Also head to orderful.com to keep up with us, and watch out, because next week, which is probably the same, I don't know when this is coming out, so it's probably out right now, our second season of the Integration Hub is starting. Retail series focus. We'll actually be talking to Everyman Jack and some leaders in the space as well. So hey, retail season's around the corner. Catch up with what's going on with me as well.
Yeah. And last plug for all the things. If you want to hear about any of the content that we've talked about or see more stories like this, head on over to everythingislogistics.com. And if you want to add your own use case of how you're using AI, how we talked about it in the start of the show, we are accepting commentary submissions. That's one thing I forgot to mention, is that if you found a great use case for AI within your organization and you work in logistics and supply chain, we want to hear it. We want to feature you. We're going to be doing quarterly updates to this AI use cases guide. And so that's a good way to get your solution or to get how you think about AI in front of, a bigger audience. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.